What's up everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. A while back I did a scenario with a similar concept but decided this one kind of needs a remake. Not only did a lot of people request this remake, but I also think it had way more potential than I initially gave it. This what if will be grounded, but I'm going to take liberties to make it work and make it interesting. It's more of an alternate universe fanfiction type story. With that explanation out of the way, let's begin covering what if Saiyans were good. This version of the story is essentially going to be an original one. We're changing such a fundamental aspect of the series that it's going to affect everything else. Our story starts pretty far back, and of course we're going to have to change some things here. For this I took a little bit of inspiration from the story about the Super Saiyan God as well as Dragon Ball Legend, but we're switching things around a bit. So the Saiyans were still a society of warriors, but in this scenario, good Saiyans and evil Saiyans coexisted for far longer. But eventually there's a breaking point. A civil war breaks out between two factions of Saiyans. There's the evil side and the good side. And the good side is led by a guy named Vegeta. King Vegeta the First to be specific. It's a brutal battle and a lot of Saiyans end up dying on both sides, but the Vegetan side is victorious. The new generations of Saiyans aren't evil brutes. Vegeta has a son, and then his son has a son. And that leads us to where we are now. King Vegeta III is the current ruler, the one that we actually know. His planet is prosperous now. They live under King Cold's thumb, who tried to take over this planet long ago. King Cold knew how useful the Saiyans would be. They're well known as warriors, and they are apparently pretty strong. Not in comparison to him or some of his troops, but still, generally Saiyans are stronger than others. But more importantly, he knows their history as brutal warriors, although he comes to learn that these Saiyans are not like the ones that he knows from history. Reluctantly, the Saiyans do work under him because they don't really have a say in it. They don't needlessly kill anymore, so their strength doesn't really have any use to King Cold, at least at first. First, he was content with having another empire under his control because they still generated money in other ways, and he was able to get resources from them too. But he found other uses for them, manipulating them into wars, staging conflicts, things like that. The Saiyans didn't destroy stuff for the sake of it. Sure, they enjoyed the thrill of battle, but not if it was an unnecessary battle. So, King Cold made the battles necessary, but this slowly starts losing use for him, and it doesn't always work. It's weird, the Saiyans have become completely pacifistic in comparison to their old selves, and whenever King Cold tries to stage something, the leadership of King Vegeta is effective enough to de-escalate things. And King Cold realizes that at some point, they're going to catch on to him. They probably already have caught on to him and are just doing everything they can to avoid it. He can manipulate the masses, but not forever. And even with the resources and money the Saiyans are getting him in other ways, it's still not useful, especially with them maybe being a threat in the future, because there's no doubt that the Saiyans eventually do want to rebel. They're just not strong enough at the moment. But what if they did become strong enough? It's not King Cold's problem anymore though. Frieza ends up taking the throne, and his outlook is pretty simple. He thinks it's best to get rid of the Saiyans. He's heard rumors of the Super Saiyan and the Super Saiyan God, but on top of that, the Saiyans have lost most of their use. Besides manual labor, Frieza really has no reason to work with them anymore, and their planet isn't really valuable either. To make things worse, one of Frieza's soldiers gets word of a strong Saiyan being born. Maybe in some alternate universe this kid would have gotten sent away, being feared by King Vegeta. But here King Vegeta sees an opportunity. The next generation of Saiyans will be incredibly strong. This one, named Broly, he might be a symbol of hope for them, but they need to make sure Frieza doesn't find out about Broly, or anyone like him. So King Vegeta promises Paragus that they'll shield Broly, keeping him secret. His power definitely could be useful. King Vegeta is well aware. King Cold was never a true ally. He was a ruler, an oppressor of the Saiyans. But Frieza is different. He's not the same as Cold. He's worse. Cold was at least content, but Frieza is probably going to be a lot more overt about his hatred for the Saiyans. He definitely doesn't seem content. One of King Vegeta's top soldiers is suspicious, Bardock, a warrior with pretty surprising strength. Amidst a meeting between King Vegeta and his top men, Bardock interjects. The Saiyans have all been trying to figure out what to do, and as much as they do want to fight against this, they realize that it's probably not going to work out. Bardock doesn't like the outcome either. He doesn't want to abandon the planet he loves, and he would much rather fight Frieza. But it's a losing battle. There's no way they could win. Even if they all became great apes, Frieza seems far too powerful for them to take on, not to mention his entire army. They need to think long term, and a short-term battle would be stupid. King Vegeta is stuck on inaction right now, and Bardock tells King Vegeta to consider another option. The two begin arguing because neither truly has a clue of what to do. Vegeta reminds Bardock that he's the superior, and he does want what's best for his people. Fighting isn't an option, but nor is leaving the planet. Bardock disagrees. They can't be complacent. And sure, leaving would be tough. It's a lot easier said than done, and it might not sound good on paper. Some of the other soldiers there think they should just fight, like Nappa, one of the other higher-ups. Even if it's a losing battle, it's in their blood. They might not be brutish warriors anymore, but they are still strong warriors. Vegeta isn't too sure of what to do. They could declare war, or they could abandon the planet. Those are really their only two options. One of them ends in certain death, and the other, it might seem a bit cowardly, but it's the smarter option, and it might prevent some deaths, and it also might be impossible at the same time. They don't know if they have the infrastructure to evacuate everybody, and besides, Frieza would just hunt them down. Bardock is conflicted too. He isn't really sure of what to do next. Maybe their only way of surviving is retreating, but doing that's a huge issue. Besides getting everyone off the planet, first they need to let everybody know about this. Frieza definitely has some sort of spies here. Even if they try to do this covertly, it wouldn't work. There's no way Frieza wouldn't notice them leaving, and before they leave, he would definitely notice the communications. Vegeta would need to publicly declare Frieza as an enemy, and right when he does that, there's a chance Frieza just destroys them on the spot. They're stuck. It seems like there's not any good option here. There is the slim chance that Frieza doesn't do anything, but with each passing day it seems more and more likely. Bardock hopes Vegeta finds a solution before Frieza kills them all. And Vegeta does see the instability on the horizon, but few realize the scale of it. His top ranks do, and sure, a lot of the masses do, but they only have a brief picture of it. Everybody's worried, and King Vegeta really needs a solution. His planet and his people are at stake. His sons must live on too. He thinks about them, Vegeta the Fourth and Tarble. Their only chance at growing up would be to leave this planet. He can't really see another way. He didn't want to accept reality, but he knows what's going to happen. A few days later, King Vegeta makes a speech for the entire planet. It's off-putting because he starts out by apologizing for not being the best leader. They've never seen this side of him. He tells them he should have stood up to injustice much sooner. As Saiyans, they should be bold. He acknowledges their history as warriors. They stood up against the evil Saiyans before. Even with the implications of the battle and all the losses that would come with it, still, they found a way, and it did end up working. He says that they have an enemy, but one that they can't fight, and he makes the announcement that shocks the entire planet. He tells them that effective immediately, every Saiyan must leave Planet Vegeta. Frieza, and anyone affiliated with him, they're direct enemies of the Saiyans. He expects chaos, but there's resounding support. They could fight, but he acknowledges the grim reality. They would all lose if they fought. There's nothing brave about stupidity. And he also tells them the facts. They might not survive if they leave. Survival isn't guaranteed, but this at least gives them the chance. Staying there would make those chances zero. But if they leave this planet, they'll make something anew. They'll live prosperous lives. And even though they're spread out, they'll still grow stronger, and then they'll strike together. The Saiyans together are strong. Rather than all of them dying in ignorance, this way they have a chance to evacuate, as well as maybe catching Frieza off guard in the future. They'll be separated by huge distances. Maybe some will be on the same planet. Maybe some won't even be in the same galaxy. Whatever the case may be, inevitably, the Saiyans will reunite one day. And Vegeta hopes he could see the next step in Saiyan civilization. He's not sure if he'll live long. He'll definitely be the biggest target. And, if he doesn't make it, he tells them it's been an honor leading them. Far out in space, there's already a Saiyan that's left. About a day ago, Bardock and his family escaped. On his ship, they're listening into the speech. It's him, Guinea, and Raditz. Guinea is currently pregnant. Any day now, this family will get another member. And that's part of what motivated Bardock so much, exactly why he wanted to leave right away. But seeing this speech, he can't believe it. He's reinvigorated, and he's happy. It gets his blood pumping. This really is their only chance. It's not a great option, but that speech was a good one. He respects King Vegeta for it, and he hopes as many Saiyans survive as possible. He hopes he gets to see King Vegeta again someday. If not him, at least one of the princes. Naturally, Frieza hears of the speech. Of course, he's listening in. It's being broadcast to every Saiyan, and the Frieza Force as well. Pretty much immediately after the speech, Frieza mobilizes his troops. The reason King Vegeta waited a few days for this is because he wanted Frieza to be away from the planet, and right now he is. There are still some members of the Frieza Force over there, but Frieza heads over as quickly as possible. The forces that are there, they're overwhelmed. Some Saiyans do die before making it off the planet, but a lot of them fight against the Frieza Force soldiers that are there. They have their own ships. They also steal some of the Frieza Force ships. People cram into larger ships together. Some extra Frieza Force soldiers come to the planet and they're killed with their ships stolen. Frieza arrives to the planet a few hours later. He should have seen this coming. He pulls out his scouter and he can detect that there's not many Saiyans left on the planet. And he sees a bunch of them flying throughout space. There's a couple ships still escaping. All of his soldiers fire on the ships, blowing them up, killing Saiyans with their blast or causing them to die in the vacuum of space. And Frieza's infuriated. He starts shooting death beams left and right, sniping as many Saiyan spaceships as possible, racking up hundreds of kills immediately. And as he does that with one finger, in another he charges a ball of energy. He's quaking, that's how angry he is. And without a second thought, he flings this ball of energy at the planet. Even some of his own soldiers are caught in the blast because they didn't escape in time. And just like that, Planet Vegeta is destroyed. Many of the Saiyans escaping didn't survive. But others did. Instead of only a handful of survivors, there's a lot of survivors. Some Saiyans did try and fight too, but many of the ones who fought did die in the process, either when the planet exploded or at the hands of the Frieza Force soldiers. And even with the planet gone, Frieza is still infuriated because first of all, the obvious betrayal, but second of all, he knows he didn't get them all. More of them definitely escaped. And what's worse, he is fearful that the Super Saiyan might rise up one day. Of the Saiyans that survived, King Vegeta is one of them. He wants to regroup with whoever he can as soon as possible, but it'll be tough to do that while being covert. But he still is hopeful. Everything he said in his speech is true, and he thinks the Saiyans will reunite someday. Frieza immediately sends out an order to his entire army. If they find any Saiyan anywhere, kill them immediately. Unfortunately, some of the Saiyans that did escape are caught later on, either because they didn't get far enough from the planet and were caught in space, or because they ended up on planets with other Frieza Force soldiers. King Cold hears of the news too. He's not surprised it turned out this way. He knew the Saiyans would rebel eventually, and he knew Frieza was cruel enough to just take them out as is. King Cold contemplated doing it himself, but again, they did make him some money. Not a lot, but enough to justify keeping them alive. He tells Frieza he might have made his hatred too apparent, and this might be a blemish on his record as an emperor. A rebellion doesn't really look good. First of all, it shows that he can turn against people at any time, but it also shows that other parts of his empire can revolt if they want to. It won't be easy, but it's an option. He really needs to step it up, and he promises that he'll hunt down every single Saiyan. Not just that, he'll make an example out of them. He retracts the kill order. Instead of killing Saiyans on sight, they'll be brought directly to Frieza. A few more are captured, and when they are, Frieza broadcasts their execution to every part of his empire, making it brutal as well. This is an example of what happens when you're not loyal. And this is what's going to happen to every single Saiyan out there once he catches them. It's a warning to all the Saiyans and every part of his empire in general. Frieza ruled with an iron fist before, but this is different. I would make a pun about it being a golden fist, but I mean, gold is softer than iron. Anyways, bad time for a joke. All the Saiyans who survive end up on different planets. Bardock and his family end up on a planet called Namek. This planet isn't unknown, but he chose it at random. There's no specific reason he went here. He knows the Namekians are a pacifist group, and when he lands there, a bunch of warrior Namekians show up, thinking that they're under attack, but Bardock explains. He doesn't want to fight them, and if they do plan to fight, he'll just leave. He knows he's putting them at risk by coming here, but one of the stronger warrior Namekians steps up and talks to him. He's younger and not as powerful yet, but his name is Nail, one of the warriors with the greatest potential, and he's speaking on behalf of Guru here. Honestly, Namek is worried about Frieza too. They think regardless of what happens, Frieza will probably find this place eventually, and they know the Saiyans are good people now. They do know the history of them as well, but they have no reason to fear Bardock, and they welcome him here. Maybe together, they could all grow stronger to ensure Namek's protection. And Bardock would like that. It is mutually beneficial after all. A few weeks pass. As Bardock's family gets adjusted to life on Namek, Gine gives birth to a new Saiyan. As far as they know, he might be the first Saiyan born on a new planet after Planet Vegeta was destroyed. A fitting symbol for the new phase of Saiyan life that they're about to enter. This Saiyan born on Namek is named Kakarot, and Bardock hopes that for his whole family, they'll all prosper and reunite with the other Saiyans one day. Frieza's hunt for the Saiyans begins. Well, it's already been going on, but now he ramps it up. He's getting very serious about it and very angry about it. To make things even better, he makes an example out of all the Saiyans he catches. Of course, it's not like any Saiyan is going to turn themselves in after this or give him info, but this is more so a message to everybody else. If anyone's caught harboring Saiyans, they'll face the same types of punishment. Anyone aiding the Saiyans is an ally of the Saiyans, and therefore, an enemy of Frieza. He doesn't really get much info out of them. It's not really going his way so far, and it just makes him angrier in the process. Their resilience holds them back from breaking. No matter what Frieza does, he can't get info out of them. And many of the Saiyans who get captured die by fighting and trying to make their own way out. Years go by like this. One day, Frieza gets some pretty big news though. King Vegeta has been found. Of course, finding Saiyans has been tough in general, but finding King Vegeta in particular, that's been a big goal of his. So this is a huge development because he knows King Vegeta probably has a ton of info. He's probably not going to give it up easily, but Frieza has his ways. As much as he wants to kill King Vegeta on the spot, it's probably smarter to keep him alive at the moment, at least when he's finally captured. On a desolate planet, King Vegeta's been located alone. Well, seemingly. Some Frieza Force soldiers arrived there, and they all ended up dying, but they did ping Frieza, letting him know where King Vegeta is. This was only moments ago, so let's rewind a bit. A few hours prior, Vegeta was using a scout scope and he actually did pick up something. A couple of powers are approaching his planet. They've actually been hopping from planet to planet and they haven't been staying in one place for a while. But he realizes he probably can't keep running anymore. But he also can't just escape right now because they'll be able to track his ship right in space. But he has a better idea. If he waits for them to land, then he could send off another ship. He's already lost most of his allies, his wife included. But two people are left with him, Vegeta the Fourth and Tarble. He wants to ensure their safety. So he waits for the ships to land, loading Vegeta and Tarble onto their own ship with a random destination. He tells them he'll catch up to them soon, but no matter what, they need to survive. The two of them do want to help fight, but he says that's not wise. This is the better option. And thankfully there is one more person alongside him, the only ally of his that actually survived and the strongest ally of his too, Nappa, one of his higher ranking soldiers. Nappa wants to fight as well, protecting King Vegeta, but King Vegeta gives him a final order. He entrusts Nappa to take care of his two kids, and Nappa can see what King Vegeta's planning. He's planning to die here, isn't he? He's basically acting as bait, and this way, Nappa and the two kids will be able to escape without being noticed. It'll look like King Vegeta was here alone, and there won't be a paper trail left behind. Nappa tells King Vegeta they need a leader for when they reunite, but King Vegeta says they'll have one, and he points to the younger Vegeta. It would be great if he makes it out of this alive, but King Vegeta knows what his fate is. And whatever the case may be, he will reunite with Vegeta someday, whether it be here or in another world. But he wants that to be long in the future. So, he must fight here alone. The Frieza soldiers land. King Vegeta flies out to them, saying his goodbye to Vegeta, Tarble, and Nappa. Leaving Nappa conflicted as he has to take the two of them away. Thankfully, there's only a few soldiers here, and they landed pretty far away. They found one strong power on this planet, and it seems like a ship landed here recently. But that's really all they know. But then they encounter King Vegeta himself. The perfect distraction. With them preoccupied fighting him, this allows Nappa and crew to escape. The recon is focused on King Vegeta himself, and Vegeta is sure to make a really big distraction, creating an artificial moon in the process. Nappa and crew escape unnoticed as King Vegeta defeats all the soldiers there. And now he sits here and waits. He could leave this planet on his own. He will be followed, of course, but he knows that regardless of what he does, this will be his end, so he'd rather die fighting than being shot down in space. Frieza arrives not too long after, seeing a Great Ape King Vegeta there. Before the ship even lands on the planet, he opens his mouth, firing a beam at it, blowing up the massive ship and leaving a bunch of soldiers stranded out in space. A few of them survive and land on the planet, with Frieza of course being a part of that. But as Frieza descends on the planet, King Vegeta then grabs onto him. At first Frieza wasn't really too concerned, but now he feels Vegeta's power. He can't actually escape his grip. But that doesn't make sense. The Great Ape shouldn't be this strong. It seems that in this time, King Vegeta actually has grown stronger. And of course, being a Great Ape multiplies that power tenfold. Zarbon is one of the soldiers nearby that was able to survive. Looking at a scouter, he can see King Vegeta's at a power level of about 650,000. That's impossible. That's even higher than Frieza's current power. It even surprises King Vegeta himself. He didn't even bother to check his power recently. But amidst his desertion, he has been training, and he has been injured a bit too, growing stronger as Saiyans do. He tries to crush Frieza, but he feels a burning sensation in his hand. Frieza's ki skyrockets, and he transforms. Breathing heavily and a bit panicked that he even had to do this. He was a bit taken aback seeing King Vegeta's power, but more so he's angry that he has to use this form. And that anger clouds his judgment for a bit, as he fires a powerful blast, completely eradicating King Vegeta. The remaining soldiers are all equally shocked. First, at seeing how strong King Vegeta was, but also seeing Frieza's second form, which they've never gotten to see. And he angrily tells everyone to search the planet now. King Cold arrives not too long after, amused to see Frieza in that form. They look pretty similar now. Frieza acted too rash there. But Frieza says he didn't. He wanted to be sure King Vegeta would die, and King Vegeta actually might have been strong enough to kill him if he hadn't transformed, as much as he hates to admit it. This worries him even more. The Saiyans are growing stronger, and he knows that if he caught King Vegeta, he wouldn't have been able to get info out of him. There's no way he would have broken. But it seems that he was here alone, and the soldiers confirm no one else is here, and it doesn't seem like anyone else has left here. But Frieza knows that King Vegeta has sons, so what happened to them? That'll have to be his next priority. Nappa, Vegeta, and Tarble travel through space, knowing that that's probably the last time they'll ever see King Vegeta alive. But they remain stoic. The planet they were sent to is one that's really far away, a planet called Cereal. A long time ago, it was cleaned out by a group called the Heaters, with a new population living there. This was supposed to be a job for the Saiyans, but of course they're not doing that here. The Heaters alone were enough though. They land in a forested area. And Nappa pulls out a scouter, one of the newer versions of the scout scope. Thankfully he still has one of these, and he can detect a power not too far away, and it's in the triple digits. This does concern him a bit, so he goes to scope it out, telling Vegeta and Tarble to stay here. He's gonna do this covertly just to figure out who's here. He comes pretty close to a small house, and he detects the strong power inside. But his scouter then picks up on another smaller power, and Nappa then hears someone right next to him. It's a kid, pointing his fingers at Nappa like a gun. What's this creep doing here spying on them? A man then walks out of the house, and Nappa can see that he's probably a Namekian, an old one at that too. And then he yells out at the kid to stop. The kid's name is Granola, and he tells the Namekian he found this guy stalking them. And Nappa says it's a misunderstanding. Thankfully he diffuses the situation, and they all learn about each other. This is Granola and Monaido. Granola is the last survivor of the Cerealians, the former species from this planet. Weirdly enough, he and Nappa, as well as Vegeta and Tarble, they share similar backstories. They're the last survivors of a dying species, executed for personal gain. Monaido has heard of the Saiyans, and he didn't realize they were still alive. But the same kinda goes for Granola too. The thing is, the Heaters do know about Granola, and they plan on using him for work. But if they were to find out about the Saiyans, that would be a pretty big issue, especially because they do work with Frieza occasionally. Monaido says they're welcome to stay here, but they probably will run into trouble. And it would be dangerous because if they're found, the Heaters will kill everybody. And you know, hearing this kinda makes Nappa happy. That's gonna be their only obstacle? Well, he's sure he could figure out a solution. After all, they are warriors. And this would definitely be a worthy cause to fight for. Vegeta and Tarble are then introduced to Monaido and Granola. Thus begins their new story. Saiyans are spread around the galaxy, but their numbers dwindle. Paragus and Broly end up on a planet called Yardrad. They're the only Saiyans that ended up there. Luckily, it's pretty peaceful and it seems to be off of Frieza's radar. But Paragus starts to work on training Broly because they could use that power. If Frieza ever does find them, Broly could be the key to victory. Thankfully, the Yardrads are very welcoming, but they also seem to have their own unique skills that they could teach. Vegeta, Tarble, and Granola all grow up together. considering each other brothers, with Nappa raising them. They're able to hide out from the Heaters pretty well. Nappa's trying to keep a low profile because even if they can fight them at the moment, they really shouldn't, because unless they can catch the Heaters by surprise and kill them right away, there's still a huge chance news gets to Frieza, and then that puts this entire planet at risk. Not just them. Thankfully, the Heaters don't come here too often. And with help from a Nido, the Saiyans learn to control their ki, making their presences unknown. Granola also does work with the Heaters from time to time, growing stronger that way, but of course he's not loyal to them. This is just an unfortunate reality, and Nappa's going to free him from that eventually. They're all going to grow so strong that the Heaters won't even stand a chance. And more importantly, Frieza won't find out. Vegeta and Tarple are pretty motivated, but more so Vegeta. He wants to grow up to rule the Saiyans again. After witnessing his father's sacrifice, and knowing what Nappa knows, this is his duty. He's the prince, but he will be the next king. He'll bring the Saiyans back to their former glory. They'll be a proper civilization again. We shift over to Namek. Raditz and Kakarot begin training under Bardock, who trains with Nail and Guinea too. Bardock and Guinea need to grow as powerful as they can, so they continuously train. The two former squad mates are still growing stronger together. That's initially how Bardock and Guinea met, and it seems they're back to their old ways. Nail becomes their comrade as well. Thankfully, Namek does remain peaceful. They haven't been found yet, and they all grow stronger together. We skip forward even further. Nearly 20 years after Planet Vegeta was destroyed. Atop a tall mountain on Namek one day, a young adult sits there, meditating, training his mind. It's Kakarot. But he senses something, pretty far away, but it seems to be coming this way. He has of course learned how to sense ki, thanks to Nail. And right when he senses something approaching, an ally arrives nearby. He felt the same thing. It's Raditz, equally confused as to what could be heading towards this planet. Is it finally time to fight? They know it could happen at any moment, but they're not necessarily ready yet. The two brothers wait as the energies get closer and closer. Over this time, Frieza has continued to hunt more Saiyans, and his empire has spread. But he knows more Saiyans are still out there. His army collected a list of confirmed kills, and also put together data based on how many ships the Saiyans had, and what their population numbers were. He's not sure how accurate this is, but estimates put the remaining number of Saiyans at under 100. Likely less. Although, new Saiyans could have been born in the process. He's not entirely sure though. But there is one in particular that always has evaded him. Prince Vegeta. Vegeta the Fourth. All this time went by and no one was able to ever track him. But for the first time in nearly 2 decades, he emerges once more outside of Planet Vegeta and outside of Planet Cereal. 4 people land on Planet Namek, with Kakarot and Raditz standing ready. The ships land not too far from them. First, a man with green hair steps off. Of course, they don't recognize him and assume he might be a threat. But followed behind him are 3 other people, with pretty shocking appearances. They're wearing Saiyan armor. Kakarot right now isn't wearing Saiyan armor, but occasionally he does. Raditz, on the other hand, always wears his Saiyan armor. Same for his parents. Kakarot's attire represents the fact that he was born on Namek, the start of a new generation, while Bardock, Raditz, and Guinea remember the past, keeping that old Saiyan culture alive. And naturally, they recognize these outfits immediately. The people that step off are Vegeta, Tarble, and Nappa, as well as Granola. Vegeta makes eye contact with the 2 other Saiyans, not knowing who they are, but recognizing that they're Saiyans right away. And he smiles, glad to have finally ran into some other Saiyans. But these aren't the only Saiyans alive. On another far end of the galaxy, 2 spaceships land on a small planet. It's a pair of Saiyans, brothers actually. They've evaded the Frieza Force for a while and have been hopping planets a bunch. They don't really have a place that they can call home, but they've been doing well for themselves. Their travels brought them to this planet called Earth. They're not time travelers, but they're dressed as if they were, wearing ancient Saiyan armor. They found this a while ago and thought it would be pretty cool to wear. I wanted to include them here so we'll have some new characters. In this story though, they are from the present, each around Vegeta's age. The Saiyan twins, Shallot and Giblet, declare Earth as their new home. Hopefully they can find other Saiyans soon, but in the meantime they could at least find a new life here. Shallot and Giblet make their way around Earth. It seems like a relatively weak planet, and hopefully an unassuming one. But as they make their way around the planet, they notice some weird things going on. The only reason they know this is because they went through something similar. There's some sort of army that's taken over Earth. Clearly, it isn't supposed to be this way. They learn it's a group called the Red Ribbon Army. A few years back, they started their conquest, and at some point there was a falling out between the leader, as well as one of his higher officers. The leader, Commander Red, ended up dying, and now the army is taken over by Commander Black. And it's going pretty strong too. Well, Earth will be a great place to stay for Shallot and Giblet, but first off, looks like they're going to need to fight this army. They're not going to live under another oppressive rule, and after all, if they're going to be staying on this planet, they might as well do it a favor. They haven't really fought in a while, and this is the perfect cause to fight for. Giblet thinks they should really lie low, but Shallot's ready to fight. This is completely separate from Frieza. It doesn't really matter if they fight here. There's no way this planet has contact with Frieza's army, and they don't. The Red Ribbon Army has taken over Earth, but that's it. They know nothing else beyond Earth. They don't even know aliens exist. This could be a nice side project for them, and it's also kind of necessary. While they're up to that, let's go back to Namek. So, how did Vegeta get here, and more specifically, why did he choose Namek? It's almost like he knew Bardock's family was here. By now, Bardock and Gine have joined too. Nail came along too to see the other Saiyans because something big's going on. Well, first off, let's explain what happened on Planet Cereal. A few months back, Nappa actually fought the Heaters and destroyed their communications in the process. He started off by sabotaging them to make sure they can't get in contact with Frieza. Not that they officially work for him, they're kinda just colleagues. Which is good, they kinda work on their own, so Frieza's not always checking on them. And by sabotaging their communications, this not only prevents them from getting help from Frieza, but also prevents them from getting help from each other because they can't communicate with each other now, unless they stick together in one group. The battle was definitely really tough, but that's what Great Ape is for. Nappa, Vegeta, and Tarbell all transformed, and Granola also helped during the fight too. When they killed the Heaters, they also covered it up, making it look like they died elsewhere. So if Frieza ever does find out that they died, or realizes something happened to them, Nappa made a paper trail that makes it completely separate from Cereal. It's dirty work, but hey, it had to be done, and it's pretty smart. That means they don't have to worry about the Heaters anymore, and hopefully Cereal doesn't have to worry about the Frieza Force ever coming back. It was unlikely in the first place, but Nappa staging their demise makes it more unlikely that they'll ever show up. They'll be led away from Planet Cereal. Anyways, with this, they were free to leave. The first thing they did was summon Taranbo. Now, they've always been searching for the Saiyans. And they've known about Taranbo, but they couldn't really use him because they didn't want the Heaters to get him. Monaido wanted to summon Taranbo for help, but he also told them it would be wiser to wait until the Heaters were dealt with. So, now that they were dealt with, they summoned Taranbo. One option was to have all the Saiyans teleported right to here, but that's probably not a great idea. First of all, they don't know every Saiyan's unique situation. Maybe they don't want to leave. And while they would hope that they could trust every single Saiyan out there, they don't know if they can. But that part of their reasoning is the least of their worries. Their main concern is that they didn't want to have everyone in one spot just at the moment, especially not on Cereal because they didn't want to put that at risk. Especially after what just happened to the Heaters, there would definitely be alarms raised. At least, if the Heaters were ever found. So they didn't just want to unwillingly teleport everyone here, and even though Taranbo would have asked them anyways, they decided a better option would be to figure out where all the Saiyans are. So, they got that info out of Taranbo. Taranbo gave them the location of all the Saiyans. All they need to do now is manually scout them. This is how they're going to find other Saiyans, and Namek is their first stop. Not many Saiyans are left, but there's more than enough to make a resistance. Vegeta knows the Saiyans are resilient. But not just that, he's confident in something else. He believes a Super Saiyan will rise up eventually. If their numbers aren't enough to defeat Frieza, the Super Saiyan will. Of course, it's just an old legend, and there's not really much merit to it. Tarbell has always wondered if his brother has just told that to himself just to make himself feel better. He kinda believes in the legend, but he also feels like it's just a motivator for Vegeta. Tarbell has honestly been feeling pretty pessimistic. He doesn't say any of this out loud. But since his brother believes in it and it seems to motivate him, Tarbell starts to believe in it too. And Nappa follows Vegeta's order. King Vegeta did say that Prince Vegeta would be the next one to lead. So Nappa is wholly loyal to him, and obviously Tarbell is too. That's his brother. As for Granola, he's been living with them for so long that they're his allies. They're close to him. They're essentially family. As far as he's concerned, this is his battle too, especially with the history of his people. Granola actually did have an idea. He said they should just wish for power from Taranbo, but Vegeta said that's not how he wants to do this. Granola's welcome to, but at the same time, Granola has grown so much stronger just by training with them regularly. It's kind of a pride thing. The Saiyans are good people, but of course, they're still prideful people. And Granola goes along with it. The reason they're explaining all this too is because, well, they're on Namek. When Monaido heard more Saiyans were on Namek, that made him happy. He actually did come along too, and he steps off the ship. It's been so long since he's seen other Namekians, and he wonders, if there's Saiyans here, have they ever tried to use the Dragon Balls here? Kakarot says they haven't. They've known about Piranga this entire time, but they never really had any need for the Dragon Balls. They were so focused on growing stronger that they didn't even think to leave Namek, especially because they kind of liked it here. It probably would have been better to use that same wish, and Bardock kind of kicks himself for not doing that, but hey, it still did happen in the end, so it doesn't really matter. It probably would have been pretty risky for him to do it anyways. So, what now? Two groups of Saiyans have finally met each other. Vegeta says they don't have to join if they don't want to, but Bardock steps up to personally talk to Vegeta. He knew Vegeta's father, and of course Nappa knows Bardock too, they work together. Vegeta doesn't even need to ask him that question. The answer is yes. They're going along with him. This is what he planned for anyways. He wanted all the Saiyans to retreat so they can grow stronger on their own, and then strike back down the line. This is what he needed to happen. He just wishes King Vegeta were here to do it, but he's not abandoning the Saiyans. Part of him has always felt bad for leaving the planet so early on, but at the same time, everyone else ended up leaving anyways, and it turned out to be the right choice. But there's no need to run anymore. They could face Frieza. And Vegeta's glad to hear that. But they're not going right now, of course. They still do need to grow stronger and form a strategy, but more importantly, they need to find all the other Saiyans they can. So Bardock's family ends up joining the crew, and their next stop is a planet called Yardrad. Apparently there's only 2 Saiyans here, but Nappa does know of one of them. Well, 2 of them actually. One was Paragus, another high-level soldier that he worked with. Bardock of course remembers him too, and he also remembers that kid Paragus had. There was something weird about him, like he was mutated. He had some sort of weird power. Vegeta, for example, was born naturally strong. But as for Broly, He was seemingly weaker, but at points his power would spike and it would be insane. It makes Vegeta wonder if he's connected to the legend of the Super Saiyan at all. It's kind of a long shot, but hey, worth checking out. Plus, they need the allies anyways, and they would get Broly and Paragus regardless. Their ships get closer to Yardrat, and on Kakarot's ship, somebody randomly appears inside of it. Kakarot's taken by surprise because, first of all, who the hell is this? He got in here randomly. It startles him. He's about to fight, but then he realizes it's Broly, the guy they were looking for. How the hell did he get on the ship anyways? They all land on Yardrat. Broly apologizes. He wasn't sure who was coming towards the planet, but he wanted to check it out because he felt a few strong powers. He teleported to Kakarot because he was one of the stronger ones. He was simply trying to protect Yardrat, and he was ready to destroy any of the ships approaching. So, he could teleport. That's interesting. Yeah, Paragus actually can too. With all the time they spent here, of course they learned Spirit Control. Spirit Control has not only made them a lot stronger, but gave them a bunch of unique techniques, one of them being teleporting. The Yardrats have been pretty hospitable, but there is an issue. This planet is actually on Frieza's radar. Thankfully they have been able to hide from Frieza, but there have been times when Frieza's soldiers approached just to search it. Paragus is glad they came here, but he's worried now. This might raise some alarms. So, Vegeta asks him the same question. He wants to group together. The more Saiyans, the merrier. And Paragus, of course, is up for it. Same for Broly. Slowly but surely, they are growing their ranks. But they can't stay here for long. Far away out in space, Broly can sense Frieza's soldiers approaching. This is a surprise to all the others because they can't even sense everything that far. Bardock tries to focus and he can kind of feel it now. So if the Frieza soldiers have been coming here, how do they hide? Well, teleporting makes it really easy. Broly and Paragus each stick a hand out, coating the entire area in their energy. This includes all the ships the Saiyans arrived on. But then they tell everyone to hold on to each other, and they teleport away from Yardrat. Before they go, Paragus mentally communicates with Paibara. He's sorry to leave so briefly, but he warns them of the Frieza force approaching again. They'll be fine, there's no issue here. But he is concerned that he won't be back here for a while, if at all. So, just in case, he thanks Paibara for everything, saying goodbye because this might be his last. And Paibara hopes for the best. Those two have been great to have around. He hopes not only for their sake, but Yardrat's sake that they could defeat the Frieza force. So, this is good. Now they have more people in the crew, and Broly and Paragus can teleport. Their search is going to be way faster with the ability to teleport. So, where are they going next? Well, they do need some time to train, and they are also strategizing along the way. But while they're working on that, they're also figuring out what planet to go to next. One of the ones Taranbo mentioned is Earth. Apparently there's 2 Saiyans there. Vegeta's never heard of the planet, and it's a pretty small one. Definitely not one that Frieza would even notice. A great place to hide out. Pretty smart. Looks like that's going to be their next target because it seems to be a safe target to go for. The Saiyans make their way to Earth. Frieza is currently at his base. His army does have a lead on something. Nothing confirmed yet, and he doesn't really want to get too ahead of himself, but there's sightings of another enemy. On random planets, his Frieza Force soldiers have disappeared, and it seems like the planets were gone without a trace too. Which is strange because, from what he knows, the Saiyans aren't just going to do things like that. And he can't confirm any of the rumors because most of the people who have seen this enemy have died. But conflicting reports say that he might actually be a Saiyan. Either way, it doesn't really matter to Frieza. There's an enemy out there attacking the Frieza Force. Whether it's a Saiyan or not, it's still an enemy. Maybe even a group of enemies. Because the enemy seems powerful, Frieza sends out the Ginyu Force. He rarely has to rely on them, but here, he wants to. With all these planets disappearing too, he kinda needs to round up some more. Usually he'd go to the Heaters because they would have a lot of planets stocked up, but he hasn't been able to reach them recently. Maybe they're ignoring him, maybe it's nothing, but if they are dead, he wouldn't really care anyways because he never really liked them too much. They were kind of a thorn in his side. But something weird's going on, because if they are dead, that means someone killed them obviously. That's another issue for another time. But he is gonna look into it. Meanwhile, the Ginyu Force will handle this. They have very specific orders. If the enemy isn't a Saiyan, the Ginyu Force could wipe them out with prejudice. But if the enemy is a Saiyan, the Ginyu Force is to take back that enemy alive. Frieza will be the one to personally kill that Saiyan, if that's who it is. It has been a while since he's caught one after all, so he's pretty happy. Their numbers are dwindling, but he needs to make sure they're all gone. That number needs to be 0. The Ginyu Force makes their way to one of Frieza's planets, one that they suspect to be targeted next based on the previous attacks. But as they arrive on the planet, they see something strange about it. The planet's just lifeless. Like, the life was sucked out of it almost. That doesn't really make any sense, because from what they know, this planet had a lot more people on it, and a lot more foliage too. But they fly around, and over the horizon they see something weird. There's a giant structure far away. Their ship's about to land, but then it's attacked by some people. The Ginyu Force is ready to fight. Of course, they strike a pose first, but they've been prepared for battle. They begin fighting this group, and of course are going for the kill. But the group doesn't really seem too strong, so they're not too concerned. Especially with all their abilities together, it's pretty easy to defeat them, and Ginyu's ready to kill them. But he hears an explosion behind him. Goldo completely disappears because he's blown up. Someone killed him. The captured soldiers laugh. The Ginyu Force is strong, but they can't stand up against the Crusher Corps. The Crusher Corps? Ginyu's never heard of them. But a voice then echoes out. Everyone will know the name soon enough. The man standing there is definitely a Saiyan. He clearly looks like one. Jason and Berta immediately go to apprehend him, but the Saiyan single-handedly fights them off and kills them. The rest of the soldiers get free, and they begin fighting Raccoon. Before he kills Ginyu, he introduces himself. His name is Turles, and Ginyu is actually a bit concerned because, well, first of all, his squad mates are dead. But second of all, this Saiyan doesn't really seem like the others that they've met. Turles isn't evil like his normal self. He still is evil though, just not nearly as ruthless. But he's going down a much darker path than the other Saiyans. He thinks that Saiyans need to embrace their roots as ruthless warriors, and leverage their power. So, he found something interesting called the Tree of Might, and he's basically been enacting guerrilla warfare against the Frieza Force, while at the same time, draining their planets of life. Some innocents have died in the process, but hey, if sacrificing others means that he could win and kill Frieza in the end, it doesn't really matter. As long as they're not fellow Saiyans, he doesn't mind. Out of desperation, Ginyu tries to steal his body, but Turles then tackles Ginyu, bringing him into the other side of the planet, where it's currently nighttime. Ginyu's terrified. He sees a full moon shining above him, and Turles is too fast for him to fight. Turles then transforms into a great ape, killing Ginyu on the spot, then going back to where the rest of his group is. This is good. They've been growing much stronger. The Tree of Might's been helpful, but they need to find stronger fruits. Still, clearly the results are good. This definitely isn't enough to fight Frieza, especially because Turles doesn't think he'd be able to handle the Ginyu Force alone. He picked them off one by one, which was fine, but if they all fought him together, he'd definitely lose. There's no doubt he can't fight Frieza right now. But again, he's going to any length to do that. He's been completely radicalized. As long as Frieza dies and the Saiyans live, as well as the Crusher Corps of course, he'll be happy. But he's not just seeking out the Tree of Might. No, he's also seeking out Saiyan legends. Of course he knows about the Super Saiyan, but there's more. And he remembers back to the Saiyans' past. The evil Saiyans in particular had a lot of great power, didn't they? He'll definitely be looking more into that. As far as Turles knows, he's actually part of that lineage. One of the few evil Saiyans to still be around. Maybe the only one. Of course, Planet Vegeta has changed him a bit, but he likes this side. Just like in the main story where most Saiyans are evil and some are good, the inverse happens here. Most Saiyans are good, but there are some who are bad. Turles doesn't really know where to go next. What he does know for certain is that Frieza now knows about him. Even if he doesn't know specifically about Turles, he knows that there's some sort of enemy out there, which is why he sent the Ginyu Force after him. So, he's probably going to shoot up the priority list. Turles has a few ideas in mind that he's trying to execute. Right now, he's relying on the Tree of Might, but he does have something else in mind. He never really liked the fact that the Saiyans turned on each other, because the evil Saiyans were clearly doing something right. They're powerful, bold. They embody everything a Saiyan's supposed to be, and they're not soft like the good Saiyans that won before. Again, no Saiyans are enemies to him. The thing is, there's not really any evil Saiyans around. So, he's pursuing some other options, things that he hasn't really considered before. He doesn't really have a problem with the good Saiyans, he just thinks they're too soft to accomplish anything. He thinks they'll end up dying unless they really take things seriously. So, Turles is looking more into Saiyan history. Things that happened far before he was alive, and things that happened far before Planet Vegeta's destruction. There has to be some secrets there that he can uncover. Things that could help him overthrow Frieza in cold, help him grow stronger, or at the very least, help Saiyans get back to their peak. And while he's not an enemy of the good Saiyans, he knows they're out there and they probably will get in his way, because this isn't how they do things. He's doing all this for the good of Saiyan civilization. He doesn't really care about dominance, but he should be their next leader. He'll definitely be a very effective one. Let's go over to the good Saiyans. The Saiyans slow it down a bit. They have to make sure they don't get caught, because then everything's screwed. So, while they're enacting their plan, they think they need to take it a little bit slower, especially because they don't really have a true plan yet. Broly seems to be the strongest of the group, and having gone to Yardrat, he's learned spirit control, which is huge, especially for someone like him. Beyond the abilities that he got from being on Yardrat, he can control his power pretty well, but nobody knows about his anger. Broly's upbringing wasn't perfect. I mean, he was hunted after escaping a destroyed planet, but it's still better than normal because first of all, he went to a hospitable planet. It's not Vampa. And second of all, Paragus wasn't a bad father here. He's actually a pretty good father. So Broly didn't really have a lot of rage moments. Paragus had seen it flare up here and there, but he never really lost control. Paragus knows he's really powerful, much more so than the average Saiyan. But he nor Broly knows the true extent of it. It makes Vegeta wonder if their group right now is enough to defeat Frieza, but he's not really sure. Even Broly alone might be enough, but you have to learn more about everyone. Right now, here's the power levels they could record. Broly's the strongest, at 3 million. Of course, they don't know his peak. Paragus is at 50,000, and he also knows spirit control, which makes him really powerful. That's how he got so far ahead, and that's why he's the second strongest of the group. Spirit control really raised his power on top of everything else. Vegeta's not the strongest despite being the leader here, but he's at 30,000. Bardock's at 20,000, with Nappa, Kakarot, Raditz, Gine, and Tarble pretty much all hovering around 15,000. They're not all exactly the same, but pretty much around that. Of course, all of them are aiming for the top. They're still Saiyans after all, and they have pretty friendly competition. The slow time that they have right now is going to be used for training, especially because Vegeta wants to see where everyone stands in terms of power. As the group's leader, of course he wants to know what he's working with. So, a few weeks pass, and eventually they do make their way towards Earth. This might be a little bit harder than finding Broly and Paragus on Yardrat because first of all, a lot of people seem to live here. Second of all, They all kind of look like Saiyans. Earthlings, for the most part, just look like Saiyans without tails. It's actually really similar. Well, besides the ones that have turned into animals. And they try and look for high powers, but it seems the two Saiyans here might be suppressing their powers. It's only natural they'd know how to do that by now. So Vegeta lets everyone know who they're looking for. A pair of twins, Shallot and Giblet. He's guessing if they could find one, they'll be able to find the other. They'll probably be together. Tronbo told him what planets every Saiyan was on, but he doesn't have the exact locations because everyone moves around on those planets. But those two have to be here, even though they can't sense them. So the Saiyans split into small groups of 2 and 3. Kakarot goes off with Raditz, and the two of them fly into one of the big cities that they could find. They really don't know how they're supposed to do this because this search could take a while. Like, even using scouters won't really help either, and just looking for ki won't help because they don't know what ki to look for. Of course, they could look for strong ki, but if the two of them are suppressed right now, they don't know the exact signature to look for. They also don't really want to make themselves known here because of the off chance that Frieza might have some sort of info on this planet. It's very unlikely, but still. And also, if they made this all public, they don't know how the civilization on this planet will react. Like, they'll be hearing that aliens have existed on this planet, and more have shown up to retrieve them. Surely Shallot and Giblet haven't caused trouble, but still. It would probably freak everyone out, and in the worst case, tip off Frieza if he has some spy here or something. So, this search is probably going to take a while. They're just going to have to look manually. Kakarot and Raditz have this area, so they just decide to split up. Kakarot's flying around, and of course, people spot him. Like, you don't see a flying person every day. But he's able to play it off. He doesn't really want to raise suspicion. When he lands on the ground, though, a woman approaches him, because she just saw that. She asks how he was just doing that, but he kind of avoids the question and simply asks who the strongest people on this planet are. You know, it's kind of a weird question, but she laughs. Especially with this guy flying around, he probably is pretty strong himself. It makes sense he's trying to find those two. He's probably trying to fight them for the upcoming tournament as well. Wait, tournament? What's she talking about? Well, she's a bit confused too because this guy's flying around, which isn't normal in the first place, but he also doesn't know what the tournament is and he doesn't know who the strongest people are. Yet he's asking about them. It makes him sound like he's never been to this planet before. Kakarot just plays it off saying he lives under a rock. Well, she explains. The two strongest people on this planet just saved everyone. Okay, this is good news to Kakarot because there's two strongest people. That's exactly what he's looking for. It's probably Shallot and Giblet. No one knows where Shallot and Giblet came from, but everyone on Earth knows that they saved them from the Red Ribbon Army. These two single-handedly defeated the army, and it was seemingly pretty easy. Things were really bad here. And nobody knew about this, but it was to the point where Kami himself almost got involved. But then these two arrived and fixed everything, so he didn't do anything. They don't know about this is just what Kami's been up to. Now these two are regarded as champions, and the world is going to celebrate with another world tournament. And these two are going to fight the winner. Whoever's the strongest on Earth will fight them. Because it seems like those two are the strongest. Honestly, she thinks they're pretty overrated, but they did help Earth after all. It's just weird because it's not every day they see people flying. She's a pretty powerful martial artist herself. The reason she knows all this is because she's going to enter the same tournament. But something catches her eye. This guy she's just meeting has a tail. Just like those two. Which isn't too crazy, she's used to animal people, but not people with tails. And his clothes aren't the same as them, but they're still weird clothes. Right now, Kakarot's wearing Saiyan armor, normally he'd be wearing his Namekian attire, but with him fighting alongside his squad right now, he's wearing this so they could all match. This guy must be connected to the two of them in some way. Again, she doesn't really know how, but they're clearly part of some strong group. And she asks Kakarot about this, and he says yeah, but he doesn't really elaborate much. He's just looking for them because it's really important. They lost contact a while ago, and they need to regroup. Again, weird. He's almost talking like he's an alien, but sure, she'll show him where they are. That's great. Does she actually know who they are? No, they're just really famous. She leads Kakarot into the middle of the same city they're in right now. And nearby, Kakarot can actually sense Raditz. He's standing atop one of the skyscrapers, and he looks down at Kakarot, seeing the same exact thing he is. There's a huge rally in the middle of the city, and there's someone who seems to be the leader of this planet. But that's not the big deal here. The big deal is the fact that two Saiyans are sitting right next to him. There's no doubt about it. Those two are Saiyans. He doesn't know what Shallot and Giblet look like, but those two have to be them. Telepathically, he communicates with them. He tells them to not be alarmed and to act normal. Of course, they're a bit surprised at first, but Kakarot tells them he's a fellow Saiyan, which still they're skeptical about because some guy's just speaking into their head and they've never seen a Saiyan do that. But he directs them to where he is in the crowd. They don't know how to communicate back, but he tells them they'll meet behind the stage. So Kakarot goes over there and Raditz flies around with him. Although Raditz is a lot more covert about this. And curious as to what's going on, the woman follows Kakarot. Giblet's a bit skeptical himself, but Shallot kind of believes it. I mean, that guy that they saw, from far away, they couldn't really tell, but it looked like he did have a tail. And Shallot's nose is telling him that he smells similar. He smells like a Saiyan. Not that he really has much to compare it to, but it's a little bit similar to his brother. That nose always freaks out Giblet. Shallot and Giblet are able to get some time alone, and honestly they kind of needed this because there was some big ceremony with them being awarded something. They didn't really care about all of that. They don't want to be paraded in front of the whole city. Kakarot and Raditz arrive, with the same woman following Kakarot. No one knows why she's here, but Kakarot says she helped him find them. They begin talking with Shallot and Giblet, and the twins learn that more Saiyans are still alive. This is great, and that's exactly why Kakarot and Raditz came here. The rest of their group's here too, but they're all spread out right now looking for the twins. They're here to reunite the Saiyans and to fight Frieza. The twins also tell everyone what they've been up to here. Giblet explains what happened with the Red Ribbon Army, and Shallot says the food here is pretty great too, so they decided to stay a little bit longer. Although they don't really like the idea of being world champions here because they kind of want to keep a low profile. Again, the entire time that same woman is listening, and it just confuses her even more. Are these people actually aliens? Oh, yeah, well, Kakarot explains. They might look similar, but the four of them, as well as some of the others here, they're part of a group called Saiyans from outer space. I mean, this is kind of a huge deal. Aliens exist, and they're here on Earth. But their secret's safe with her, especially because they seem like good people. Also, this is kind of great because if those two are leaving Earth, that gives her a better chance of winning the world tournament. And this tournament thing does sound kind of interesting to Kakarot. He has no clue of what it is, but it seems like Earth is a nice place. Once they settle all their business, maybe this will be a nice place to visit. Especially because Shallot says the food here is great too. Kakarot's big on good food. On Namek, there wasn't really amazing food because none of the Namekians really ate anything. They just drank water and occasionally had plants just when they wanted to taste something. But he's kind of rambling. He will come back here to try the food, and Raditz probably will too. They found who they needed, and they can leave now. But as they leave, Kakarot says he wants to thank her. Anyone could have helped him, but she's been pretty helpful. And he never got her name. She learns his name, and he learns her name is Chi-Chi. He thanks Chi-Chi. He hopes he'll see her again. The four Saiyans all fly off, regrouping with everyone else. Vegeta introduces everyone and himself, and Shallot and Giblet are immediately ready to join. They were pretty young when they left Planet Vegeta, and they knew that the previous Vegeta was the ruler. They're very glad to see the prince is still alive. And more important, the fact that more Saiyans are alive. Vegeta really wants to try and find everyone, but it's gonna take a bit. They are trying to keep a low profile right now, but he's confident. Frieza and King Cold will be defeated, and the Saiyan Empire will be rebuilt. The Saiyans all leave Earth, with Vegeta trying to find the next best location. But as they exit the solar system, Broly suddenly perks up. He senses something not too far away. And slowly the others start to sense it too. Nobody immediately recognizes the ki signature because they only learned how to sense ki after leaving Planet Vegeta. But the previous generation of Saiyans is pretty wary because they know someone who is that strong. A power like that, and one that feels that evil, it has to be either Frieza or King Cold. Gine never saw him up close, but as for the other three, Bardock, Paragus, and Nappa, they have seen King Cold up close before. It's more of a gut feeling, they can't really confirm it, but they think it's King Cold approaching them and not Frieza. Which is still a huge issue, but at least they know it's just one of them. So, they divert their course, going to a random planet nearby, making sure the ship doesn't follow them, but it does follow them. Bardock flies the ship to this planet, and it's one they could breathe on, but more importantly, he chooses it because it's one that they could probably fight well on. And he chooses a very specific part of the planet to land on. This planet seems to have a few moons, and on the part they're on now, the moon's about to rise. The ship that they sense lands near them, and they feel a bunch of other smaller powers. King Cold steps off, alongside a bunch of soldiers. The first thing he sees is just Bardock. The other Saiyans are all hiding, trying to ambush. Simultaneously, they all launch attacks, wiping out the entirety of King Cold's force, destroying his ship in the process too. He chuckles. An ambush. That's kinda cute. It's a bit annoying they destroyed his ship and all his communications, but he'll be fine here. He could take them all out, and he could fly back through space on his own. He didn't realize those were Saiyans he was pursuing. Their scouters didn't even pick up any powers on the ship, they just saw a ship flying through space. Almost like they were all suppressed. And the fact that there's so many Saiyans in one spot. It's interesting. King Cold does have an order to catch them, but with this many Saiyans around, it wouldn't hurt to kill some in the process. He's handed his empire over to Frieza, so he shouldn't be working as hard as he does right now. But he picks out Vegeta and Tarble in the crowd. He was betrayed by their father before, so this is partially personal as well. He'll at least keep those two alive. For the others, he's not too sure. Vegeta's not worried at all. He didn't expect to fight King Cold this soon, but this is fine. What King Cold doesn't realize is that the Saiyans are far stronger than they ever were before. He's not just outnumbered, he's outmatched too. There's a reason that those scouters couldn't pick up their power before. They were suppressing it, and King Cold is simply an appetizer on their path to freedom. Unlike Frieza, King Cold hasn't trained himself, but his current strength should be fine. Frieza's definitely been prepared more, and it makes King Cold wonder if he should have prepared as well. He's confident in his abilities though. At least until he sees something rising in the distance. A glow over the horizon. Bardock smirks, just on time. All the Saiyans look over towards the moon, and King Cold quickly tries to launch a blast at it. But Broly then teleports in front of the blast, taking the full brunt of it. And it was a relatively weak blast too, so Broly doesn't really feel anything. Quickly, King Cold tries to launch another attack, but Broly then tries to fight him one-on-one, giving the other Saiyans some time to transform. And once their transformation's complete, Broly then looks towards the moon, transforming himself as well. He's never done this before, but when he transforms, he feels a bit strange. And then, Broly just feels himself lose consciousness. All the Saiyans have turned into great apes, and Broly follows suit. They get ready to fight King Cold, but they also see something's kind of off with Broly. Paragus does mention he's never transformed before, but it should be fine. He might rampage a bit, but they'll be able to calm him down. Right? everyone goes Great Ape against King Cold. He is outnumbered by a lot, but he's not heavily outmatched. The biggest threat to him is Broly, especially because something weird is going on with him. Cold tells everyone that he's already killed some other Saiyans recently, and these few will join them soon. There's not many Saiyans left, and this is a huge bargain. He gets to kill so many at once, including the Prince. Even with this many attacking him, and all transformed at the same time, it's not going to work. But something is strange about that Saiyan who just blocked its blast. To be safe, King Cold shot off Broly's tail the second he could. And it worked, he actually did take the tail off. The other Saiyans noticed this too. Broly's not transforming. It's weird, but there's a clear increase in his power and they can feel it continually rising. He's focused on fighting King Cold right now, but he's fighting kinda sloppy, like he's disregarding everyone else. And Paragus tries to talk with him just to see if he's fine, but Broly doesn't even respond. He's just fighting on autopilot essentially. And Broly is struggling for control right now. Something's changed within him. Unknowingly, he's awakened his wrathful form. Everyone's left confused. It's like he's using the power of Great Ape, but he doesn't actually become a Great Ape. Broly begins rampaging, and his power keeps increasing as well. King Cold is doing pretty well against the other Great Apes, but once Broly starts actually fighting him, he starts having a much bigger challenge. And Broly's able to pretty badly injure him, seemingly taking him out of the battle for good. Even gravely injuring him, or at least what seems to be a severe injury. Knowing how Frieza is able to survive a lot of attacks, King Cold actually does survive this too, but he's down for a little bit. And because Broly thinks he's defeated him, he then sets his sights on everyone else around him, which means he's attacking his own allies. Paragus steps in trying to calm Broly, but nothing's working. Thankfully, there is a shred of consciousness within Broly, and he's not attacking them as ruthlessly, and it feels like he's hesitating a bit when he fights. And it looks like Paragus is actually getting through to him. But then he feels a sharp pain behind him. Just like King Cold did to Broly, he snipes off Paragus' tail, causing Paragus to de-transform. King Cold is there with a gaping hole in his torso, but he's still able to fight somehow. He kinda regrets not training more. He knows Frieza's done so, and Frieza also does have more forms, but unlike Frieza, King Cold isn't suppressing his power right now. This is his full strength. But he sees that one Saiyan's uncontrollable. Despite his great power, King Cold might have a way to win here, especially because he can just blow up this planet and call it a day. But no, he's only going to be satisfied if he actually wins by defeating them, not just by taking a cheap shot at the planet and killing them that way. Besides, he should still at least catch some of them to get some info. It's more important that he kills Broly. Maybe he's the Super Saiyan. King Cold has no clue. There's a lot of thoughts racing through his head right now. King Cold charges as much power as possible, then, throwing both his hands up into the air, as the area around them is leveled, a massive explosion knocks all the Saiyans away, ripping off a chunk of the planet in the process. This scatters all the Saiyans and does damage them at the same time. King Cold did have to kinda hold back with that attack because it would have been really easy to blow up the planet, but that's the only way he could think of to actually separate the Saiyans. Broly's pretty much unfazed, and the only other Saiyan around them is Paragus. So, King Cold goes for Paragus, but Broly protects him. Coalescing all his power into his horns, King Cold charges at Broly, stabbing through his shoulder, then landing some melee attacks in the process. He's actually beginning to damage Broly too. He can win here, especially with Broly being so sloppy. But King Cold just pissed Broly off even more by going after Paragus like that. First of all, hurting him and taking off his tail, and then trying to just kill him right now. But Paragus can't just stand by and watch. He sticks out a hand, lending some power to Broly and healing him with spirit control. And he tries to channel the rest of his power together. He feels useless now, especially because he can't even transform anymore. He wants to help here, and more importantly, he wants to make sure Broly's safe. Partially due to spirit control allowing him to channel the power so greatly, and partially due to the mix of emotions he's feeling, Paragus undergoes a weird change. For a brief moment, he feels a huge surge of power. King Cold is about to attack Broly again, but Paragus teleports right next to him, grabbing onto his arm and blocking the attack. Even in his current state, he's not strong enough to fight King Cold, but he feels a power increase, and it serves as a good enough distraction because King Cold looks on in fear, not believing what he's seeing right now. And Broly's even stunned for a second too. Like, for a brief moment, it's like he gains a little bit of control, seeing that Paragus is okay and stronger than before. None of the three has a clue of what's happening, but Paragus tells Broly to get it together. Use that power to win here. They can get an easy victory. He teleports to Broly's side. He places an arm on Broly, trying to help his son control his power by using his own spirit control. The two are both empowered at the moment, and there's a brief moment of clarity for Broly. King Cold lifts a finger up in the air to charge an attack to destroy the entire planet. They might have escaped this on Planet Vegeta, but they won't escape it this time. Together, Paragus and Broly push back against it, then commandeering the attack as their own, adding their own ki to it, and throwing it right back at King Cold, destroying him with their combined power as the two of them power down into their base forms, watching as the attack flies far out into space, destroying every little bit of King Cold. The other Saiyans didn't get back in time to actually land any attacks on King Cold, but some got close enough to see what just happened. One of them was Vegeta, and he can't believe what he just saw. He asked Paragus what that power was. Is that something he learned on Yardrat? No, he has no clue what he did there. Same for what Broly showed off. Broly doesn't even really remember anything, except brief glimpses. Initially, Vegeta thought that Broly might be the Super Saiyan, but what Paragus showed might have actually been Super Saiyan. He has no clue because they don't really know what Super Saiyan is. They don't know if it's a form, a state of being, whatever. Maybe Broly's mutation made him a Super Saiyan. Maybe Paragus' new transformation, that was Super Saiyan. Maybe there's something in their genetics that makes them as strong as they are, hence why both of them are like this. Paragus has no clue, but what Vegeta does know is that they need to work on getting that power again. Broly's power is great, and he's definitely the strongest of them by far, even far beyond Paragus when he was transformed just now. But he doesn't have full control, so he's kind of a liability. As for Paragus, well, it makes sense. He's an elite warrior, and the new transformation he had, he was conscious while using it. So Paragus should study that power, get control on it for himself. And as for Broly, they need to work on taming him. But this is good. They're learning new things about their powers, and they defeated King Cold in the process. They got some good info out of this too. For one, King Cold made a comment about Frieza actually training and preparing for them, so they could expect Frieza to be a stronger opponent. They always knew that he was the stronger one, but this tells them that he's somewhat prepared. Also, King Cold mentioned that he did kill a few of the other Saiyans, so it makes Vegeta wonder how many he's taken out, and how many other Saiyans are left out there. It's still worth checking out the other planets that he knows of, mainly the ones that Taranbo told him about, but that is a bit concerning. The good news is they lost no Saiyans here. The bad news is, there might be less Saiyans out there than they expected. Tarble then butts in too. This entire time, Vegeta's believed in the idea of the Super Saiyan, and Tarble believes that is what they just saw. There's no other explanation. Broly's probably just mutated. As for Paragus, he's probably a Super Saiyan. Tarble was one of the more pessimistic ones, but now he's getting more hope seeing this. And he's sure there's a lot more Saiyans out there than they realize. The Saiyans are really tenacious. They're strong and unrelenting. They'll find more of them out there. And in the meantime, the rest of them will become a Super Saiyans too, if that's possible. Worst case, they have one Super Saiyan on their team. And they also have Broly, who's a huge powerhouse. So the Saiyans begin planning their next step of their journey. Meanwhile for Frieza, it's business as usual for him. Days pass and then weeks pass. He often goes long periods of time without hearing from King Cold, but this is different. Usually it's no more than a couple of days. It was last reported that King Cold stopped by on some planet, and scouters from the troops around him picked up some powers nearby. It was only a handful of small powers, but they've disappeared and there's been no contact from any of those people, nor from King Cold himself. Frieza can only assume one thing happened. The Saiyans are making their move, and they beat King Cold, which means they're actually stronger than Frieza realized. And it has to be a group. It's not a single Saiyan or a handful of them, there's an actual squad out there somewhere. Frieza quickly coalesces all of his troops together, sending them to that general area, giving them the task to find the Saiyan squad as quickly as possible. He still hasn't dealt with that other threat yet either, that one that wiped out the Ginyu Force. Things are falling apart really quickly for him. Now, Frieza has trained, and he's prepared to fight the Saiyans when he actually finds them. The issue was he couldn't find them for the longest time. Now he might actually have a lead, but it's not as great as he expected because, first of all, the Saiyans are stronger than he realized, and there still is that other enemy out there. That also might be another squad of Saiyans somehow, or completely unrelated. He doesn't realize that it's Turles and his group, so it's a small group, but there is one Saiyan there. He's assuming the worst case scenario right now. There are two squads of Saiyans out there, and because they're all fighting around the same time, he thinks they're coordinating, and maybe they're going to meet up soon. This assumption, of course, is wrong. He doesn't realize Turles' group is completely separate, but that makes Frieza want to be a little bit more cautious here, and it also makes him more antsy to find the Saiyans. Maybe the Heaters know something, so he tries to consult them again, but once more, it's been a while since he's heard from them. We'll get back to that in a bit. What's going on with Turles' group? Well, Turles stumbles upon something interesting. He returns to the same solar system where Planet Vegeta once was. He knows that around here there were some Saiyan outposts. Of course, they've been long cleared out. The Frieza Force did attack these planets because some Saiyans actually did escape to these planets because they didn't really have time to go anywhere else. And pretty much all of them died in the process here. But on these nearby planets, there are some things left behind, some outposts that the Saiyans had. And there's plenty of data left behind too. Lots of info about Saiyan history that Turles can use as research. Some of the Saiyans actually took this with them because they wanted to preserve some sort of Saiyan history. Right now, Turles is trying to piece together everything he knows about Saiyan history, and find out more info in the process as well. Turles also realized that Frieza might have more data and more info on the history of the Saiyans, but of course that would be held with the Frieza Force. He needs to go directly to Frieza and raid whatever databases he has. From what he understands, there is a hidden piece of Saiyan history that he could take advantage of because there's a lot of gaps and he can't figure out why. A good chunk of Saiyan history did die with the planet itself, but the pieces are out there, he just needs to connect them. In the meantime, he's going to continue getting more fruits from the Tree of Might as well, growing stronger in the process in case he can't find out anything else. As for the other squad of Saiyans, they continue to train and grow stronger, but can't locate any other Saiyans. More weeks pass and there's still nothing. It looks like King Cold actually did get to some of the planets that Vegeta was going to go to. That might have been a tad too late, and that kind of angers Vegeta, because it wasn't too long ago when he got this info from Taranbo. That was only a few months ago, so from the point that wish was made up until now, somewhere between that time frame is when some of these Saiyans disappeared. He can't help but kick himself for it, but he's going to make it right. He's been thinking of possibly resurrecting all of the Saiyans, but he's not really too sure about that. First, he'd have to find a set of Dragon Balls that can do that. Taranbo can, And apparently there are other Dragon Balls out there because look at what happened with Namek. He's not sure if any of the planets he's come across have Dragon Balls though. They actually don't know Earth has a set. But that's fine. Once everything was settled with Frieza, Vegeta was considering reviving the Saiyans and then using another wish to make their own new planet. But they would need a couple of different wishes. First, they would need to actually have a planet, then they'd have to send all the Saiyan souls there, and then revive the Saiyans, so they would need 3 separate wishes. It's kind of a long shot, but it's an idea that he keeps in mind. These losses aren't in vain, and maybe he has a way of reversing all of this. But in the meantime, they're growing much stronger. King Cold's fight with them actually injured them a bit too, and helped exploit their Zenkais in the process, so there was some good to come out of that as well. Now back to Frieza. Frieza still can't get in contact with the Heaters, and he suspects by now that they're dead. But someone else then comes to him. One of their affiliates who operates in another galaxy. Frieza actually reached out to this guy instead. He was defeated by the Saiyans centuries ago, but didn't die. He's been working underground, trying to remain covert and still making money, but it's been a lot less stable. Frieza only knows of him through the Heaters actually. Whatever happened all those years ago was so bad that the Kaio were about to seal away this guy. But he picked a fight with some of the Saiyans and they were able to overcome him. So this entire time he's been under the radar, alongside the rest of his clan too, and they still operate in the shadows. The reason Frieza was looking for the Heaters is because he does need more allies at the moment, and he's not really too fond of the Heaters, but he knows they could at least work for him if he paid them enough. And with no Heaters, well, that only leaves this group. He wasn't sure if he can get in contact with them, but thankfully he did. Frieza's actually never met him in person, and he introduces himself, Lord Frieza, ruler of the Frieza Force. To stay cordial, the man introduces himself too. His name is Bojack. He assumes Frieza has a business proposition, and yeah, that's exactly what this is. He asks why he should even work for Frieza, and he doesn't say this out loud, but he thinks he's stronger than Frieza, so why would he work under Frieza? What he doesn't realize is that Frieza has trained too, so neither group knows which is stronger at the moment. None of this is spoken, but they all read between the lines. Frieza has lots of money. Plus, the Saiyans are still out there, and they're enemies of Bojack too. Not to mention they killed the Heaters, who were allies to Bojack. Frieza says that his father and the Ginyu Force are gone, assuming the Saiyans are responsible. So he needs as many strong allies as possible, especially with his troops shrinking. And they come to an agreement. Bojack's team takes a massive down payment, with another huge bonus on top of that if they actually find the Saiyans and kill them. Dead or alive, it doesn't matter anymore. Frieza and his group of course are going to continue their search, but now he has Bojack and the Hera clan on a retainer, sort of working alongside the Frieza Force. Bojack's crew embarks. They don't really have anything to work off of, but they feel like they could find the Saiyans. They first go to where King Cold was killed, assuming that maybe they're somewhere around there, maybe on one of the nearby planets. It will be kind of a long shot, but having a starter point is better than nothing. Plus, they're very heavily motivated. I mean, the sum that Frieza offered them, it is a really great amount of money. They knew Frieza was loaded, but not like this. Plus, they do have a bit of competition. Frieza himself. I mean, if he finds them first, they're not going to get their bonus. He has his own duties though, so they focus purely on this, and hopefully they could find the Saiyans first. Let's go back to the Saiyans. Turles isn't the only one trying to become a big Saiyan scientist. There's Bardock. He's a great scientist, so he tries to study the new Super Saiyan form that Paragus has, as well as whatever's going on with Broly. They don't really have a lot of resources for him to work with, so he can't be too scientific with it. Yeah, we're actually using the Bardock as a scientist explanation here. I mean, it feels pretty fitting for this what if, and let's say he actually was a scientist on Planet Vegeta. So he studies what happens with them. They obviously know about the legend of the Super Saiyan, and he wonders if he should look more into Saiyan history about it. You know, the same exact thing Turles is doing. Not that he knows Turles is doing that, or that Turles is even out there, but regardless, that's what Bardock's trying to do now. And after the King Cold fight, they do have a lot of time. The only person that they know is after them is Frieza, so as long as they stay away from him, they could do pretty much whatever they want. And this form will be the key to defeating Frieza. Against King Cold it was helpful, but they can't just rely on Broly. Broly and Paragus combined was a lot. Enough to kill King Cold, so maybe it would be enough to kill Frieza, but again, they want to be extra sure. They don't want to go through all this effort trying to survive just for them to die against Frieza in the final battle. They need to make sure they win. And Bardock figures out what makes them transform. Well, for one, Broly is a mutant. They kind of knew that beforehand, especially when he was born, they saw the fluctuations in his power. As for Paragus though, he's normal. He isn't mutant. So that Super Saiyan form is just kind of weird. Sure, Paragus is an elite warrior, but what this tells them is that maybe regular Saiyans can access Super Saiyan. And it might not just be one person. He had a theory before that maybe Paragus was supposed to be the Super Saiyan, and because of that, that's what mutated Broly. But it seems like Broly being as strong as he is just kind of a freak thing. No offense to Paragus, but nothing about him is special, in terms of having any exclusive traits that make him go Super Saiyan. And Bardock being the great scientist he is, he eventually does get some equipment and sees that some cells within Paragus activate when he transforms. He calls them S cells. I know, you guys probably don't like the S cells. But come on, Bardock is a scientist here, of course he'd want to look at them. Anyways, he focuses on that more, and they also try and help Broly in the process figuring out how to control his power, because a lot of it stems from rage, obviously. About a year passes after the events with King Cold. The Saiyans do make a lot of progress, but one thing that concerns them is the fact that they know Frieza's been training, and they don't know how much that would have benefited him. Of course, they don't even know Frieza's full power to begin with. They've only seen King Cold, and King Cold says Frieza's stronger, and he's trained more. And from what they know, Frieza was always stronger, so they aren't too sure what to think. But after a year of training and figuring out more about Super Saiyan, they think that maybe they could fight Frieza right now. They should have the necessary things for it. So they embark on their own journey, seeing if they could at least find anything about Frieza, figure out where he is at the moment. Vegeta wanted to round up more Saiyans, but it seems a little too dangerous right now. First of all, Frieza's definitely on alert after King Cold died, and on top of that, maybe they know where more of the Saiyans are. So even though Vegeta knows where the Saiyans are, Frieza might know himself too. And if they left before and countered him at their current level of power at that time, they wouldn't have won, and then all the Saiyans would have died. He knows there's a few remaining Saiyans, and he hopes they're still fine, but it looks like before he gets to them, he's gonna have to kill Frieza. He does contemplate going back to Cereal and wishing them all to one spot, but that also may be risky too, because with the disappearance of the heaters, that planet may even be under watch. Monaido had returned home, and they hope he's fine. After coming to Namek, he went back. If he were with them, he could just make a set of Dragon Balls here, or bring along the old ones. But he's no longer with them, it's just all the Saiyans and Granola. They begin their next space journey. And out of curiosity, Vegeta goes to one of the planets where he knows a Saiyan was. They land on the planet, and they're horrified from what they see. The entire place is scorched. There's nothing left. No sign of life. They could tell this was all recent too. Recent as in within the past few weeks. What the hell happened? Once more, Vegeta regrets not acting sooner, but it's not his fault. They couldn't have known what was about to happen here. They chose this planet specifically because they know that Frieza probably wouldn't have found it. So who found this planet and destroyed it? Was it actually Frieza? No, that wouldn't make sense because Frieza Force soldiers would be here. They would sell the planet. Whoever came here just destroyed it, pretty much for fun it looks like. A stray ki blast flies over towards them. Aim it at Nappa. Quickly he swats it away. The enemy hasn't left yet. They've been waiting here. Then Broly is tied up by some sort of weird string. Actually, it's like energy, not real string. Then a bunch more attacks come his way. Very quickly, Broly is taken out of commission. Everyone's able to power up before he gets injured even more. So he doesn't die, but he's targeted right away. Injured pretty badly, and he can't fight at the moment. Not a good thing, obviously. He is the strongest on their team. And they see a crew of 4 come towards them. They could tell that Broly was the strongest here, so they took him out first. And they're glad. It seems like their trap worked. They destroyed this planet, and actually did find a Saiyan here. The Saiyan that they found, well, they kept him alive for a bit, tried to get some info out of him, and then killed him. They were hoping they wouldn't have to wait too long, but a few weeks here was nothing. They were actually about to give up and leave this planet, but it seems like the bait worked. They thought that maybe with another Saiyan here, the others would show up eventually, and just by chance, Vegeta decided to come here. Not that they knew anything about it, but it ended up working, so it seems like the Saiyans know where the other Saiyans are. That's great for them, and it looks like they got most of them in one spot now. Paragus then transforms, going Super Saiyan at the sight of his son being injured like that, and he begins fighting the Hera clan. They taunt him a bit. This guy's strong, but it's gonna take more than just him to fight them. Like, this guy could take on one of them, but not all of them at once, especially because it's just 4 of them here right now. Their leader's not even gonna fight just yet. Bardock laughs at that. Alright, if Paragus is gonna be enough, how about a few more of them? Simultaneously, every other Saiyan there then powers up, going Super Saiyan. Granola even powers up too. It's not like he has Super Saiyan obviously, but he has his double red-eyed form now. The cockiness from the Hera clan instantly washes away, as a giant group of Super Saiyans all fight them together. A lot of the people here with Super Saiyan kind of unlocked it recently, and no one has it mastered yet. Paragus has had it the longest. Bardock, Vegeta, and Nappa were the next 3 to unlock Super Saiyan, with everyone else following them. So some people don't have great control over it, and no one has it completely efficient and mastered right now. But they've all grown really powerful in the last year. I mean, they did have a good amount of resources. They procured healing for themselves. They had great training partners around them. They had Bardock's science to help them unlock this form too. Combine all that, and that makes for a deadly group of Super Saiyans, even though they're just at grade 1 of Super Saiyan. With these, the Hera clan is defeated. Vegeta's anger fuels him here too, knowing that he lost another Saiyan life, but it won't be in vain. Once Frieza and any other threat is gone, all the Saiyans will come back. One of the Galaxy soldiers is still alive though, Beidou. Vegeta asks him directly, is there any of them left? Or did the puny group of warriors get wiped out just like that? He laughs. There still is one more of them left. Vegeta fires a point-blank ki blast, killing him, as another person flies towards them. The leader of the Galaxy soldiers and a fellow Hera clansman, Bojack. He has to say he's a bit surprised. He didn't think it would go that quickly. And he's actually a bit concerned. You know, going into this fight, he was pretty confident. He thought they'd just be able to wipe out the Saiyans once they found them, but instead they wiped out his group. So he wastes no time, going into his full power. What? You thought this was going to be a one-sided fight against Bojack's crew? No. Well, it kind of is. It's one-sided in the sense that the Saiyans are way ahead. Bojack begins fighting them, and this should be a great test for their powers. He's far stronger than anyone else on the crew. And individually, a few Saiyans are going to be needed to fight him, but they have more than a few Saiyans. They have plenty of Super Saiyans, actually. It's a little bit hard to fight with this many people here, but they fight pretty well together. Plus, they have some unique abilities up their sleeve, particularly Granola. Him attacking vital points is really helpful, especially because other people could just attack where he attacked. and Bojack can't believe what's happening. Really quickly, he ends up getting defeated too, and the Saiyans are not happy at all, particularly Vegeta. He's done waiting around. They're going for Frieza right now. He won't let any more Saiyans die on his watch, and he won't let more people come after them either. They're pretty beat up from this, particularly Broly, who took a lot of the injuries, but still, they made it out of here alive. That's what matters. Pretty much at the same time, on another far end of the galaxy, he wonders what the galaxy soldiers are up to. Bojack did tell Frieza they had a plan, but he never got the details on it, which is fine. As long as they get the job done, that's all that matters. Unless Frieza gets to them first, of course. But Frieza finds something weird. It's something that he saw before. One of those planets that's been destroyed randomly. There's no sort of life on it, and the only thing left behind is a giant tree. Knowing what happened with the Guinea Force last time, he checks this out himself. Just as the Saiyans come across the galaxy soldiers, Frieza comes across the Crusher Corps, wiping them out in a pretty similar fashion, with their leader then showing up, holding some sort of weird fruit in his hand. And Frieza could tell pretty much instantly that he's a Saiyan. That's weird. The rest of the group definitely wasn't comprised of Saiyans. What's this one doing all the way out here? Is he affiliated with all the others? Turles is a bit shocked to hear this. What does he mean the others? Like, he knew a lot of the Saiyans escaped, but is there some group of Saiyans out there that he doesn't know of? Interesting. He thanks Frieza for that info. Well, that tells Frieza this guy's completely separate. So, what gives? What is he up to here? Turles says he didn't expect to encounter Frieza right away, but he should be good to go now. He's planted so many trees of might across the entire galaxy and even beyond that he's amassed such a huge amount of power. It's going to be way too much for Frieza to handle. Of course, Frieza's angered by all this. Turles has eluded him for a while, but he'll wipe him out as easily as he wiped out the rest of his group. Oh, that crew that was with him? Yeah, he doesn't really need them anymore. He's more than strong enough to take on Frieza himself. And this is interesting behavior. Not really like a Saiyan, at least not like the ones he knows. Well, yeah, Turles takes pride in the fact that he's not really like the other Saiyans. He's found out some more stuff about himself and the Saiyans that really lines up. Turns out, he might be from a lineage of more evil Saiyans, which will be a direct source of his power. His research ended up leading him to this part of the galaxy. And this planet also seemed like a good source of energy, so he got a fruit from the Tree of Might here, taking a bite out of it, growing even further. He considers himself a historian and scientist of sorts for the Saiyan species. And he does want more info about the history of evil Saiyans, his potential ancestors. And he asks Frieza. He's not just going to give up the info, will he? They're going to have to fight for it. Frieza doesn't even have a clue of what he's talking about. And the Saiyan's making a mockery of him. He'll come to find Frieza's strength is far beyond what he could even imagine. And just to try and instill terror into him, Frieza then powers up, going into his final form, completely skipping any of the others. Yeah, that kind of surprises Turles. He didn't expect that, but this won't be an issue. Killing Frieza will be great. It's not his only goal, but still, it'll be a fun process. The two begin fighting, and somehow, even without transforming, Turles is keeping up with final form Frieza, which is weird to Frieza. That should be impossible for a regular Saiyan. He's that powerful? Even after all this training, this Saiyan is still keeping up. He lets Frieza know that the Tree of Might is a pretty potent thing, and Frieza's only seeing the beginning of his power right now. Frieza hates being mocked by this guy. Turles keeps speaking down to him like he's lower than him. Well, that's because he is. He was hoping he didn't have to break this out, and he wanted to save it more as a surprise for the other Saiyans, but you know what? He'll give it a test run here against Turles. Frieza has one extra stage of power beyond this, and not his 100% power in his final form. No, a completely new transformation. He did spend a few months training, and that made him grow a lot stronger than he is right now, but on top of that, he unlocked a new evolution in power. Turles was the first one to see his final form, and he'll also be the first one to see this new form, surrounded by a brilliant golden aura, as Frieza then turns into Golden Frieza, and Turles can feel the power overflowing. Frieza really is everything that everyone said he was. By the way, Frieza originally chose his golden form because he wanted to mock Super Saiyan, but he never had seen it before. Although he did also say before he chose Golden because it shows who's at the top of the pecking order, so he probably still would choose Golden here anyways. We're gonna go with Golden Frieza still. It makes Turles wonder, the other Saiyans out there, would they have been strong enough to counter this? Frieza could tell that Turles is trying to act tough, but there's no way he can contend with this. Although, Frieza respects that Turles can contain his fear, even in the face of certain death. He's quite stoic, but Turles is pretty straight up with him. He doesn't fear anything here. No, he's still pretty confident that he could win. He has one more form himself. Turles crushes the fruit in his hand, beginning to power up even further, first bulking up in size and then being surrounded by a dark red aura. Not much changes about him besides him bulking up and his hair growing much longer than before. Like he said, he's part of the lineage of evil Saiyans. He's still looking more into his history, so he doesn't necessarily know what this form is, but he guesses the Tree of Might gave him this power. What better name than Legendary Evil Saiyan? This is going to be a pretty fun battle. Frieza's pretty curious. What is this form Turles is showing? This is definitely new. He's only ever seen Saiyans become great apes. Well, Turles could say the same thing for Frieza. He's never seen anything like this before. Frieza asks outright, is he the Super Saiyan of legend? Turles says he definitely is not. Great. Frieza has no reason to be worried then. He honestly doesn't know what to expect from the Super Saiyan, but if this isn't that, then this definitely isn't a legend. Turles begs to differ though. This is still legendary, just in a different way. The two begin their battle, Golden Frieza versus Evil Saiyan Turles. Of course, it's a pretty explosive fight, and pretty much everything around them is destroyed immediately. But far away all across the galaxy, Vegeta's crew is all together, of course, and they sense something strange going on. Why could they feel this all the way out here? Whatever they're sensing definitely isn't close, but it's also definitely really powerful. And that gets them concerned too, because they can't tell whose ki that is that's fighting. The last time they saw Frieza, they weren't able to sense ki, so they don't know what Frieza's ki feels like. Although, this ki kind of feels similar to King Cold, and it's definitely really evil. Also, much higher than King Cold's ever was. But it's not just that power they're sensing. They assume that first one is Frieza. The second one feels completely different. It's something unrecognizable. There's some sort of other enemy out there. Someone who's strong enough to fight Frieza, even with Frieza's new level of power. This is concerning for a few reasons. There's an unknown enemy out there who has a gripe with Frieza, and maybe he's related to the Saiyans somehow, or even has a gripe with them too. But as for Frieza, they can feel his power, and it's really high. Even with all their power combined at the moment, that definitely wouldn't be enough to fight Frieza as he is now. They really need to kick things into high gear. And whatever's going on out there, they hope it's going to work in their favor. They don't know who Frieza's fighting, but hopefully they win. The enemy of their enemy is their friend, even though they don't know Turles is actually a Saiyan like them. The fight rages on. Frieza's pretty surprised to see a Saiyan this strong, especially after getting this strong in his golden form. He thought no one would be able to defeat him, but this guy's contending with him really easily. Plus, unlike normal Saiyans, Turles is actually able to fight out in space. Seems like a good side effect of this form. This allows him to fight Frieza on a much larger scale, and also lets him avoid being killed if the planet's destroyed. But as the fight continues to rage on, Frieza loses power. He doesn't have full control over his golden form yet, and Turles actually does have an edge in terms of raw strength, much to Frieza's surprise. He doesn't know what this Saiyan did to get that strong, and he's never seen anything like this power before. But Turles finishes off the fight, penetrating a hand through Frieza's chest, and launching a powerful blast through it, leaving him floating out there in the vacuum of space. Frieza powers down into his regular final form, floating there seemingly lifeless. Good, that's one less loose end. Turles still has a lot more to accomplish, but it's nice that he got to fight Frieza. He didn't think he would be that powerful, but it's just a testament to how strong his evil Saiyan form is too. And even without having his whole squad anymore, it's fine. Turles can make do. He leaves Frieza floating out there in space, and then goes towards his ship. This doesn't seem to be his main ship, but he takes it back to Frieza's main base, locating that, and then raiding it for all the info he can get. He doesn't actually kill a lot of the soldiers, especially because a lot of them evacuate before Turles even gets there. But Frieza's dealt with, and all he wants is the info that Frieza has. And Frieza does have a lot of historical data on the Saiyans, including Saiyan legends too, which is exactly what he needs. He wants to look more into Saiyan history. He got what he wanted, and then some. But he also needs to find those other Saiyans that are out there. He quite likes this evil side of himself too, being consumed by the power that comes along with it. As for what's going to happen when he meets those Saiyans, well, he doesn't know for sure. Knowing Saiyan history with how the evil Saiyans fought the good Saiyans, they probably will fight. There's no way they're going to be allies. Turles has come to accept that, but it would be nice to have more Saiyans on his side. He does have some other things he needs to do though, although there is still a loose end. Turles didn't kill Frieza. He thought he did. What he doesn't realize is that Frieza is really durable. Frieza is pretty badly injured, and yeah, he powered down, but he didn't die. He's not going to die from this, nor will he bleed out from this. Actually, this injury isn't really that bad considering what we've seen Frieza go through in the main series. But he doesn't have a lot of power left, and he's kind of just stranded there. Thankfully for him, some of his army is still around, and they eventually do locate Frieza. He's alive, not in great condition, but still alive. And unlike what happened after Namek, it's not like he needs a bunch of cybernetic parts. But it is going to take some time for him to heal, especially because they have less resources now. Frieza's army is still active, but at the same time it's slowly crumbling. They've lost King Cold. They've lost a bunch of soldiers. Frieza nearly just died, and if Turles actually stayed around to finish the job, he definitely wouldn't have survived this encounter. If they want to have any hope of winning, things need to change really quickly. Let's go back to our main group of Saiyans. Of course, they sense this from all the way across the galaxy. The fact that they even felt that is really surprising, and that tells them whoever they're dealing with is way too strong for them. But it seems like whoever was just fighting Frieza killed him, because Frieza's power just disappeared, and the other guy's power was still around. None of the Saiyans has a clue of what they just felt. Bardock's the first to say something. He doesn't know if Frieza was actually defeated. Like, it feels like that, but they can't really trust their ki sense from that far away. He could still be alive. All they know is that Frieza's ki disappeared. The fight could have ended some other way. They really don't know for sure, and they shouldn't take this as a sign that Frieza's actually dead right now. The other Saiyans agree, especially the older ones wanting to be more careful. And they remember what they saw with King Cold too. He was able to really take a beating, so there's no way Frieza was killed just like that. Paragus thinks this isn't a sign that Frieza's dead. They can't take it at face value and believe it. They need to 100% guarantee it and confirm that he really is dead. And of course Vegeta sees another big problem. That other power. They don't know who it was. And it's not like it's easy to narrow it down either, because first of all, they don't even know of anyone who would be that strong. And in terms of people who have beef with Frieza, well, a lot of people would. So there's a lot of people with a lot of reasons to kill Frieza. Whoever that was, they're not guaranteed to be a good guy. much less an ally to them. Either way, they need to get moving. They need to figure out how to get stronger, quicker, because in the event that Frieza's still alive, or in the event that enemies are going to come for them, they need to be strong enough to fight. So, what happens after this? Well, time passes. A lot of it actually. Years go by. Everything's pretty much at a stalemate. It's not like Vegeta can make a wish to revive the Saiyans either, because if Frieza still is alive, then that's going to be for nothing. He'll have to get to the other Saiyans later. Granola ends up returning to Cereal too, but tells the Saiyans he's always there if they need his help. He likes working with them, and Vegeta and Tarbo are like brothers to him. So, eternally he will be an ally to them. But for now, at least he can return to his peace. Once the time comes to fight, he'll be there to help. This happens because the Saiyans pretty much have their own permanent place now. There hasn't been any sign of Frieza over these past few years, but he's active again. The army is definitely out there. So the Saiyans found this new planet in a completely different galaxy, and they decided to settle down here for a bit. They still need to find out who fought Frieza though. As for Frieza himself, he's recovered a long time ago. He actually hasn't really trained much, he's purely dedicated himself to finding Turles. But ever since their fight, Turles has been a ghost. He's not even focused on the other Saiyans anymore, it's like he's focused purely on this one thing. But while he's not physically training a lot, mentally he's at least working on his golden form, trying to get better control of that. He feels like that might be why he lost last time, so he's working on it. But it's not like his training in Hell. When Frieza was in Hell in the main story, that's really all he could do, just mental training. Here, Frieza still is running an empire, and he has a lot on his mind, so he's not going to fully master the golden form right away. And it's definitely not going to be easy either. As for the Saiyans, they've all grown significantly too. There's been a lot of training over this time. They've all gone beyond Super Saiyan by now, discovering Super Saiyan 2, and of course perfecting the original Super Saiyan form. A few of them have even gotten access to a brand new form, Super Saiyan 3. And thanks to the Saiyans all having their tails still, besides Paragus and Broly at least, they could utilize Super Saiyan 3 much more easily than normal. And as for Broly, he's kind of gotten a control on his power. He's actually accessed his own Super Saiyan form, which was really tough for them to control, especially because they had to fight Broly in the process, but they've kind of made it work. He's still the strongest of the group by far, but he also has more room to grow, especially because Super Saiyan isn't his ceiling. That's just another stepping stone. Living on this planet, even if it's going to be temporary, has been pretty nice. The chances of them being found by the Frieza Force are incredibly slim, and they basically have this entire solar system to themselves, which is also great for resources because they could just go to the other planets and get them if they need. As far as they can tell, they're the only intelligent life forms around this area. It's pretty much a dead zone. One day Vegeta tries to survey the area around them more. This will be better for planning. In the event they do have to fight, they want to know everything about the planets around them because that could be used for an ambush, either against them, or they could utilize that in their favor. The Saiyans have considered going back to Earth, but they don't want to draw any attention there. Earth doesn't deserve to have those problems. Maybe they'll return someday though, at least when this war is all over. But Vegeta continues looking around here, just to verify that the planets around them are actually safe and there's no one on them. As the leader, he's also taking initiative, which is why he's going on his own. As far as he can tell, all the planets around them are empty, but on one of the ones he lands on, some thing attacks him. It's not an enemy or anything. He actually doesn't really feel any ki going along with it. But there's a small animal that ends up scratching him. It's some really weird alien animal, but it's an alien, so probably not too weird. He doesn't know what to expect out here. The cut he got isn't that bad, and he just leaves the animal be. But again, just looking at it, something about it's off. Like, it's acting really intelligently, and its eyes look weird. Maybe he's just being paranoid. At the very least, he should disinfect this, so he goes back to his ship, and gets ready to return home. But he starts feeling really weird. Like, it feels like something's crawling around in that cut. What the hell attacked him? Well, that animal was normal, but someone else was controlling it. Little does Vegeta know, for a while, he and the Saiyans were under watch by somebody. Not Frieza, but someone else. And after all this time, the enemy finally had the opportunity to strike. Vegeta returns to the planet, and no one could really see anything weird with him. He's acting normal, but almost a little too normal. And Vegeta's glancing around at everyone, trying to figure out what his next plan is here. What they don't realize is that Vegeta's actually fighting for control right now. He's been taken over by an external parasite. And finally, after all this time, he can get his revenge on the Saiyans. This actually goes pretty far back. Remember in the beginning of the story I mentioned that King Cold would stage wars against other species? While the Saiyans were good, they still did fight a bunch of wars, and one of them was against a group called the Tuffles. That part of Saiyan history is still there. This war actually isn't that old, it was in the same century. Not too long before Planet Vegeta was destroyed, in fact. The Saiyans weren't nearly as ruthless, of course, but King Cold was using them like puppets essentially. He started a conflict, and it turned into a war between the two species, with the Saiyans ending up winning that war. But there was still one survivor of the Tuffles, rather, a contingency plan that was mechanically engineered. A project called Baby, the last remain of the Tuffles. Unbeknownst to the Saiyans, he's been stalking them for a while, and he wanted to possess one of them somehow. Thankfully he got his chance, and he took over Vegeta's body. He could never fight Vegeta directly, so what he did is follow him to this planet, then taking over another animal on the planet and scratching Vegeta that way. then entering Vegeta's body through the cut and taking over. Baby was able to take full control of Vegeta, which is why he looks normal now. He's completely suppressed and he's merged with his body fully. Right now he's just trying to figure out what he can do against the Saiyans. What is the best way to strike back against them? He needs to learn even more about them and then work on a good strategy. He can't reveal his hand just yet, but he can start infecting others pretty soon. And once he does so, he'll get much stronger himself. He'll be able to power this body up even further, and then he'll get rid of every last Saiyan. At long last, the Tuffles will finally get their revenge, using Vegeta as their own weapon no less. It's kind of ironic, the Saiyan Prince being the thing to finally destroy them after so long. As for what else is out there, he's not sure. Baby knows nothing about Frieza or Turles or anything like that. As far as he knows, this is the only group of Saiyans out there, and he just wants to get rid of them. Sorta like Frieza, but for different reasons and with a much different method. Baby's already overcome the hardest hurdle. He infected one of the Saiyans, with it being Prince Vegeta no less. A pretty huge feat. But he can't relax just yet. No, he still has a ways to go. Slowly but surely, he has to infect some of the other Saiyans, and also be covert while doing so. The first one he's able to get is one of Vegeta's closest men, Nappa. Occasionally they have one-on-one time. They are pretty close after all, which is the perfect opening for him to take over Nappa next. And now with 2 people under his control, he could spread even further. Soon enough, he's able to lure the new recruits in, Bardock's squad, the ones that they just got, calling them for a meeting and framing it like he's going to tell them a lot of info because they still need to be caught up on some things. Over that time skip we recently passed, they were found out in space and added to the Saiyans group. Vegeta and Nappa ambush them, infecting them as well. Slowly Baby's collecting more power. Eventually it spreads to Raditz and Guinea too. And now he has a good chunk of the group infected, just about half of them. But most importantly, he still has Vegeta. Vegeta isn't the strongest of the group, but he's one of the strongest. And there's a lot of power deep within him. Recently the Saiyans have gone beyond Super Saiyan, of course, getting Super Saiyan 2 and 3. And Baby could use that with Vegeta, but there's something beyond that he could probably get too. He can grow even further. After some of Bardock's studies on Broly's power, he figured out that a lot of his power comes from great apes, so the other Saiyans went back to that form, trying to see if there's anything else they could do with that. Of course, this is Vegeta's knowledge, so it's Baby's knowledge now too. He could definitely use this going forward. And while he's pretty covert so far, now a good chunk of the group is acting weird. And he's getting a little too ahead of himself, so it becomes more obvious. The first one to notice is Bardock. He's been around Guinea enough. He knows she's not acting normal. Same with Raditz. Thankfully, Kakarot seems to be fine, but he could also see the same things. Something's wrong with them. And Baby decides his cover's been blown. Not a big deal. Now he doesn't have to hide anymore. Seemingly at random, a fight breaks out. Guinea and Raditz versus Bardock and Kakarot. Bardock yells out to the others, saying there's something wrong with them. Shallot and Giblet get involved and try to help, but Shugesh and Tora step in. Then Paragus tries to get involved, but Nappa and Leek go after him. Broly, Giblet, and Tarble are left a bit confused, so Tarble goes to Vegeta. But Baby's a lot less inconspicuous now, and Tarble can clearly tell something's off with Vegeta. He's been weird for a while. Not completely weird, but weird enough that Tarble hasn't noticed. He didn't think anything of it, though. But whatever he's looking at right now, it's not his older brother. At least not in terms of his mind. Baby begins powering up. He proclaims the revenge of the Tuffles has begun. This is where the Saiyans, the point in which Baby gets to control everything. Now a complete battle begins. The entire faction is split. Bardock, Kakarot, Paragus, Broly, Shallot, Giblet, and Tarble are against the others, all of whom have been possessed by Baby, led by Baby Vegeta, of course. The infected Saiyans all go Super Saiyan. For some reason, Vegeta's the target, but why? They have no clue what's even going on. But it clicks with Bardock and Paragus. This guy mentioned something about the Tuffles. As 2 of the older Saiyans, they do remember hearing about this. It was part of Saiyan history. Formerly, the Saiyans did have a war against the Tuffles. Now, there were some conspiracies surrounding it, and how King Cold was involved, but that's not really important at the moment. What's important is that they know there was a war against the Tuffles at one point. And they also know that the Tuffles were wiped out. From what they were taught, the Tuffles were the aggressors. Of course, King Cold staged everything. Either way, it's all connecting now. Somehow, the Tuffles had one last project, or one last survivor. Whoever it is, or whatever it is, it's now using the Saiyans as weapons against themselves. This is a really tricky situation. They need to figure out how to defeat the other Saiyans without killing them because it's still using their bodies. Whatever or whoever this thing is, he can kinda utilize them as meat shields. Thankfully, Broly hasn't been infected. As the strongest Saiyan, that is really going to be helpful. Broly goes up against Vegeta. Knowing Broly's one of the stronger ones, Baby of course wants to take over him too, but he does have trouble. By just using the power of Super Saiyan, he can't really contend with Broly, but that doesn't matter. He now has much more power and transforms into Super Baby. But by now, Broly has much more control over his power. He still is a bit concerned about it, especially in a dire situation like this, but he thinks he can handle himself. He then transforms, using his wrathful state. Baby finds this fascinating. He's using the power of a great ape, but in a much different manner. Well, it kinda makes sense. He is one of the few Saiyans without tails, but it's probably not because of that. Of course, he siphons energy from the others. And with the rest of the group subdued, as well as with their power being stolen, Soon enough they aren't threats anymore, and baby Vegeta is the sole threat. But still, that leaves a good chunk of the group out of commission. The previously uninfected people are the only ones still fighting, with Broly being at the forefront of it all. The others do try to help as much as they can, but Baby is far beyond anything they've ever fought before, especially because he transforms even further. Once he siphons even more power, he becomes Super Baby too, and he's still growing. This is enough to even push Broly, making him utilize Super Saiyan, which he's never used in a serious battle before, at least in his controlled state. The other Saiyans are also at the peak of their power too, with them utilizing Super Saiyan 2 and 3. Thanks to still having tails, they can use Super Saiyan 3 pretty well, besides Paragus. Baby starts picking off the group one by one. Tarble tries to do anything he can to get to Vegeta, but Vegeta's completely possessed. He can't do anything to save his brother. He's one of the first to go down. Then goes Paragus and Kakarot. They're not killed yet, just simply defeated by Baby's might. Bardock, Shallot, and Giblet are still standing, with the twins being targeted next. Baby goes about this kind of randomly, first taking down Giblet, then Bardock. Broly's still fighting too, of course, and he's the main event. And briefly, he does hold off Baby for a bit, but Baby does have one more transformation up his sleeve, or at least an idea for a transformation. Seeing Broly utilizing that power of Great Ape, he decides to try it for himself too. What would that power look like on him? And can he grow even stronger? Using some of his power, he creates an artificial moon, throwing it up into the sky. Vegeta still does have his tail, so this is all he needs. Aiming to decimate everyone, Baby then transforms into a Great Ape, trying to power up on top of that as well, showcasing Golden Great Ape. He did this kind of on a whim, and it ends up working perfectly. And with this, he easily decimates Broly. The others get up and try to fight, but they can't really do much. Although, Shallot's in the best shape of all of them, which kind of leaves him in a bad position because he's terrified right now. He thinks he's definitely going to die here, but he's still not deterred. He tries to fight as much as he can. Someone then places a hand on him. Giblet stands up. He's not going to be able to fight much any longer, so he channels some of his energy into Shallot. Make use of it, or at the very least, try and give this to Broly. The others join in. Kakarot stands up. He's grown pretty fond of Shallot, and he thinks he's got this. He's confident in his comrade and in his friend. And Bardock's right there with Kakarot. Paragus joins in too. Shallot needs to help Broly in any way possible. He can't let Broly die. And finally, Tarble lends his energy too. Shallot of course has his own brother, and he can completely understand what Tarble's feeling like right now. Imagine if that was Giblet being possessed. Everyone's counting on Shallot, and he gladly accepts their power. They all channel their energy into him, expecting to just give him a small boost in power, whatever they can to help. It's probably not going to be much, but still, they gotta do something. But there's a weird thing that happens. They feel a strange power surging throughout all of them, with Shallot being the recipient of that too. The rage he's feeling towards Baby slowly subsides, being replaced with something that's almost calm, but also a new weird type of energy flows through him. It's so strange, he's never felt this before, but at the same time it does feel familiar, and very comforting. And while he's not the recipient of this power, Giblet also kind of feels it too. Like there's something familiar awakening within him, or at least his brother. Broly's on the ground, pretty badly beaten. Despite his amazing power, he cannot contend with Great Ape Baby at the moment. Baby stands over him laughing, about to crush him under his foot. And he can sense the weak power of the other Super Saiyans, but Shallot's power suddenly disappears. Broly wonders what's happening, but he looks over and sees a weird glow nearby. Baby can't really sense anything either, but he could see something happening. There's a fiery red glow in the distance. And then he hears a voice in his ear. That red glow disappears. Like, it moved over here. Somehow it moved over here that quickly, and he didn't even sense it. He turns towards whoever's talking to him, and Broly looks up too, seeing Shallot floating there, but he looks a little different. His hair's red, and he can't sense his ki. Baby then gets punched in the face by Shallot, nearly sent flying into space with so much power, and Shallot didn't even realize he had that much strength within it. But he's able to move quickly enough to actually catch Baby. He can't let Vegeta's body go into space. Broly watches on confused, and the other Saiyans come over to join him. He asks what happened, and they're not too sure either. They just lend their energy to him, and he suddenly transformed into something else. Unbeknownst to them, they accidentally performed the Super Saiyan God ritual. Shallot has become a Super Saiyan God. They can't sense his power either, but now he's far beyond Baby in terms of strength, and he actually beats Baby surprisingly quickly, causing him to escape Vegeta's body, returning back to a new form. He doesn't really have many options left, and he definitely can't infect Shallot at the moment. Not to mention, Shallot has more than enough power to kill him at the moment. Panicked, he tries to leave as fast as possible, flying off into the distance, but Shallot simply sticks a hand out, launching a powerful blast of ki. And he can barely hold back the blast. He doesn't realize how much strength he has still. The blast sends Shallot flying back, leaving a massive crater where he's standing, but also illuminating the entire planet. The beam careens far out into space, and in the process, getting rid of Baby. Nobody knows what just happened, but hopefully they get some answers soon. Far away, in a completely separate part of the universe, there's a replay of the fight being watched. It's Whis, watching it in his staff. He's actually showing it to Beerus, who just recently woke up. He set his alarm clock for this time because he was told a rival would appear around now, and hearing that he was attacked by someone, he's really pissed. He hopes that person didn't kill his rival. Thankfully, the Saiyans are all still alive. But that's not the only discovery that's been made recently. Around the same time, a badly injured Baby is floating throughout space. He wasn't completely destroyed by the blast. Thankfully, with Shallot firing it kinda sloppily, the power wasn't too concentrated and it didn't just completely eradicate him, although it was strong enough to send him to the opposite end of the universe. But Baby feels another strong power approaching him, which is weird. He doesn't know who could be this strong, but what great luck that he found someone that strong. Maybe he could take over whoever this person is and continue his plans. Although, it seems he really isn't that lucky. The person he sees is another Saiyan, Turles. Without a moment's hesitation, Baby tries to take over him. Turles was on the search for something and, thanks to all his tech, he detected a really strange reading out in space, which led him to Baby. And, not knowing what Baby's powers are, Turles is kinda caught by surprise, then being taken over by Baby. Only very briefly though. Baby's already pretty badly weakened, and even worse, Baby doesn't realize Turles is the perfect counter for him. Turles is so in tune with his body and his power by now that he simply powers up. His evil energy basically acts as poison to Baby, and Baby has no clue how this is possible. He hasn't encountered anything like this before. For a brief moment he does become Baby Turles, but through Turles' raw power and willpower, his own evil energy completely eradicates Baby, cleansing himself with the negative energy. Turles has no clue of what that was or who that was, nor does he really care. Baby's been completely extinguished, dying with a whimper inside of Turles. Anyways, Turles continues his search, and he finally discovered what he's been looking for, an ancestor of his, who's been long locked away. Amidst the fight between the good and the evil Saiyans long ago, the good ones won thanks to help from the Super Saiyan God. Turles doesn't know much, but this is what he's uncovered so far in his search for Saiyan history. Although, just as the good Saiyans had someone like that on their side, there was one person like that was the pinnacle of the evil Saiyans, with uncontrollable power and one of the biggest forces on their side, and thanks to the Super Saiyan God, he was defeated. But he never was killed. At first, Turles thought that was the case, and he at least wanted to find remains of the guy, if any existed, because that could really help him in his research, and could definitely help him grow stronger in the process. Especially with this guy being so powerful, Turles wanted to study his body if there was anything left of him. It took a while, which is why he hasn't found anything until now. He had to chart the path that this guy might have taken, and figure out where he was defeated. This took a lot. He first had to figure out where the fight took place, then the time it took place, then the exact location of the planet at that time, and then any of the various paths that this guy could have taken. He could have died on the planet. He could have been sent flying out into space. He could have been sent far away. He could have exploded into a bunch of pieces. Turles doesn't know for sure, so he's been looking for everything. And thanks to a lot of the high-tech things he's gotten from the Frieza Force, that made it a bit easier for him. And he eventually found something. He at least wanted to find a part of this guy's body, but he ended up finding way more than he expected. It seems he actually was sent flying out through space, and his body's perfectly intact. Not just that, it doesn't seem like he died. He was actually frozen, cryogenically preserved after being frozen solid. He landed on a harsh planet not too far from where the ancient Saiyans once lived. It was at the edge of the solar system, and it seems like he got caught by the orbit of that planet. Then, being pulled in by its immense gravity, crash landing there. This planet's incredibly harsh. Turles puts a cloak on. It is cold here. It's at the edge of the solar system, there's constant harsh ice storms, and it's so cold here that pretty much any element freezes. Not to mention the gravity here is really intense. Not for Turles, but it's about 1,000 times what he's used to. No wonder he was pulled in by the orbit here. And Turles uncovers the ancient Saiyan, using his own ki to thaw him out, wondering what he's about to awaken. He doesn't know this guy's name, but they're connected. They're both part of the evil Saiyan lineage. This guy is an ancestor to him. And as Turles lends his own evil ki to him, he could feel a slight amount of power surging within the evil Saiyan. He's actually being revived. Just as the Super Saiyan gods have finally awoken, the ancient legendary evil Saiyan has as well. Turles has found Cumber. Not long after this encounter, a god arrives to meet the Saiyans, and it's not Beerus. The Supreme Kai Shin shows up on the Saiyans' planet, which for now is simply referred to as New Planet Vegeta. They're hoping that they're not encountering a new threat right away, and technically they're not. Shin's not a threat to them, but he is here to warn them of something, or rather, request their help with something. Babidi actually did end up on Earth, and he's planning to strike soon enough, trying to revive Majin Buu, and Shin has to explain exactly who Buu is. Thankfully, the Saiyans are at least familiar with Earth because they've been there before. Well, at least most of them have. Babidi actually did want to go after Frieza or the Saiyans, but he couldn't find them easily, and it definitely would have been way too risky to go after Frieza anyways. So this should suffice. Getting energy on Earth would be great, and then he could revive Buu, and then he'll just have Buu attack Frieza. Little does Babidi know that would be a terrible idea, and Frieza would win that regardless. But no one knows that. Point is, Babidi is on Earth trying to get energy to revive him. The Saiyans agree with it, especially because Shallot wants to test out his new god form. He's actually not sure what it is at all, or how he obtained it. They were actually just about to test out the exact same method again, but Shin kind of interrupted their plans. They spent a lot of time rebuilding and recuperating after Baby's attack. Immediately after, they tried figuring out what caused Shallot to transform, but it looks like that's going to be delayed a little longer. Next up, they're going to test it on Giblet. The group arrives on Earth with Shin teleporting everyone there. The issue is they don't know where Babidi is right now. There's a couple strong powers in the same area, so they go to that first, which ends up being the World Tournament. Oh yeah, Shallot and Giblet remember this. And pretty quickly, Shin picks out some of Babidi's servants. Right now, the tournament is in its final match. One of the contestants is a guy with 3 eyes, representing a school called the Crane School. The other is representing a school called the Turtle School, joining because her father used to be a part of it. Kakarot recognizes her right away. That's Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi ends up winning her fight, becoming the champion of the tournament, and she's up against Mr. Satan next. Thinking he's the strongest, Spopovich and Yamu are actually trying to steal energy from Mr. Satan. But his fight with Chi-Chi ends up being really quick because he bribes her. She takes it because it's easy money. She doesn't really care about the glory of this battle. Besides, she knows she would have beaten him anyways, and she's glad to have at least won the actual tournament. Fighting Mr. Satan was just kind of an honorary thing. This leaves Spopovich and Yamu kind of empty-handed. So, on a whim, they try to attack Mr. Satan, but somebody jumps in the way. It's Raditz, acting on his own. He holds on to Spopovich while Yamu tries to go after Chi-Chi, but Kakarot jumps in. Then she senses a bunch of strong powers and sees all the people in Saiyan armor. Those alien dudes are back, and she remembers Kakarot. She's glad to see him here again, but why is he here? And hopefully this time he's here a bit longer. Shin and Kibito were kind of hoping they wouldn't intervene, but they weren't able to react quick enough. They didn't think Kakarot and Raditz would jump in. Not sure what to do now, Spopovich and Yamu end up retreating, and the Saiyans try to stop them, but Shin and Kibito communicate with them telepathically, telling them to not do this. That's when they then realize Kibito's here too, actually waiting for Shin on this planet. So the group goes to follow Spopovich and Yamu. Shin didn't bring all the Saiyans with him because it's kind of overkill. Like, he didn't need to bring that big of a group to fight Buu, especially because Shallot is the strongest at the moment, so he only brought Vegeta, Bardock's family, Shallot, and Giblet. This group should be strong enough, and after all, they don't want to bring too many strong people. That would give Babidi more chances to get energy. Kakarot and Raditz stay back to make sure the tournament isn't attacked, just to ensure Babidi doesn't have any more henchmen. And the rest of the group follows Spopovich and Yamu. They watch as Babidi kills those two, and then sicks Dabura onto them. Before Dabura could do a surprise attack, he's stopped. Shallot transforming into a Super Saiyan God, killing him with one shot. Seems like a pretty simple task. Shallot then infiltrates the ship alone, with Shin and Kibito trying to stop him, although the other Saiyans just follow along. They trust his judgment. He enters the ship and quickly defeats Pui Pui, and then also defeating Yakon. With no idea of what to do next, Babidi thinks his best bet is stealing energy from Shallot. He is able to catch Shallot off guard, teleporting him to Babidi's part of the ship alone, and then draining his energy, while he's in Super Saiyan God no less. It's strange because Shallot's ki doesn't feel normal, and there's no evilness in his heart to exploit right now. But Babidi also feels a weird divine presence within him. Not a big deal though. This means he has more than enough energy for Buu now. Once Babidi's done taking the energy, he teleports Shallot away, who was briefly paralyzed by having that energy stolen, as well as being pretty weakened because Babidi took a lot of it. He actually took way more than he needed too. He's only got a moment alone before everyone gets down here, but it's fine. He just needs to feed this energy to Buu's egg. He watches on gleefully as the energy fills up Buu's egg, and then something weird happens. Babidi then teleports himself and the egg to the surface. The Saiyans sense him moving, so they fly back up. And as they get back to the surface, they see the egg hatching. Someone steps out of it, but it's not what Babidi expected, and it's definitely not what Shin and Kibito expected. They were terrified at first, but now they're just confused and actually a little happy. Especially Shin, because it's someone he recognizes. Standing there is the Grand Supreme Kai. Very confused himself, too. Last he remembers he was part of Buu, and then he was sealed away. He looks around. There's a bunch of Saiyans and 2 other Kais. And then there's Babidi. Oh yeah, he should deal with that guy. Fearfully, Babidi throws up a barrier, but the Grand Supreme Kai launches a beam, quickly dispatching him. He can't deal with him any longer. Shallot's ready to fight, expecting that to be the Majin Buu guy, but Shin tells him to stop. That's not Buu. This is actually one of the people Buu absorbed. The Grand Supreme Kai then makes a weird face, and then feels something weirdly painful as part of him splits off. It's a piece of pink goo, and then it molded into the South Supreme Kai. Shin and Kibito are really confused because why are these 2 back and not Majin Buu? Well, the Grand Supreme Kai's not too sure either, but he felt a bunch of godly energy surging through him. It's almost like it purified Buu in a way. Whenever Babidi fed to that egg, the energy went directly to him rather than to Buu. The Grand Supreme Kai completely overpowered him, and then purified him. He still does have Buu's powers as part of him, which is why he guesses that pink blob came off of him. It looks like instead of Majin Buu absorbing these 2, it's now the other way around. They hold Majin Buu inside of them, purified and restrained, and now they have full control. But what confuses him is the godly ki. Where did that come from? The other 2 Kais point to Shallot, and he's confused. What does he mean godly ki? He was just using that new Super Saiyan Red form he has. They don't know what else to call it, he just calls it Super Saiyan Red. The Grand Supreme Kai asks him to show off that form, so he transforms. That's not a normal Super Saiyan form. That's a godly form. Now, the Grand Supreme Kai has been sealed for millions of years, so it makes me wonder if he would know about this Super Saiyan God because that probably came after his time. But I think he definitely would know a god form when he sees it, and Shin and Kibito saw that too. They felt the godly presence within it, but they didn't realize that Shallot didn't know it. Whatever that form is special, and the Grand Supreme Kai wonders what it is. They'll definitely have to look more into it. To make things even more confusing, there's then a bright pillar of light that appears out of nowhere. The Kais all immediately freak out, especially the Grand Supreme Kai because he doesn't know what to do in this situation. And then even some of the Saiyans look surprised, mainly Vegeta and Bardock because they've heard rumors of this guy. Of course, his history with the Saiyans is way different, so Vegeta doesn't really know him the same way he did before. The person standing in front of them is Beerus, as well as Whis. and he's really happy to see right off the bat Shallot is standing there in Super Saiyan God. Well, that was a lot easier than expected, but he's a little surprised to see the Grand Supreme Kai and Sao Supreme Kai here. Didn't something happen to them? The Saiyans watch on silently as a lot of exposition happens. High-level conversations between the Kais, Beerus, and Whis. More importantly, they find out why Beerus is here. Coincidentally, they were just looking for the Super Saiyan God because he awakened recently. They actually did go to New Planet Vegeta. And Beerus fought all of the Super Saiyans there. He even got to fight Broly, who was really strong, but found out that there was one stronger Saiyan, although he went to Earth with some other guy that called himself the Supreme Kai. It made Beerus wonder what Shin had in mind with him, but he learns that the Super Saiyan God came here to stop the threat of Majin Buu, which ended up freeing the other two Kais. So, Beerus immediately requests a fight with Shallot. And hearing how strong this guy is, Shallot doesn't turn it down. Everybody watches the fight go on, and even at the tournament, people could feel the shockwaves from it. The fight then eventually moves its way towards the tournament itself, with everyone in the crowd watching. Kakarot and Raditz are completely lost because what has everyone been up to? Who's that cat guy? Is that Majin Buu? They can't sense his power just like Shallot's. Anyways, Beerus is really content with his fight, and more importantly, after he flew over the World Tournament, he smelled a bunch of good food down there. So he decided to make a brief detour. All the Saiyans and the Kais followed him too, joining in on the tournament festivities. Kakarot and Raditz are caught up to speed, and Chi-Chi also listens into it, but it makes her even more confused. She asks Kakarot if he could fill her in on what's going on, and honestly, he has no clue either. One thing I should mention about Beerus here is that he didn't actually suggest the destruction of Planet Vegeta like normal. He actually pities the Saiyans. He was pretty surprised to find out that a lot of them were still alive. There was a point where he considered it, but that was when the Saiyans were partially evil. At some point they were pretty much all good and he had no reason to have them destroyed. Frieza went ahead and did that, and that kind of irked Beerus because destruction is his job. Beerus also learns more of what happened with Frieza after he talks with Vegeta. They spend some time at one of the concession stands stuffing their face because both of them enjoy the good food here. He learns of what happened over these past few decades while he was asleep, and he also learns more about Vegeta himself, the prince and the current leader of the Saiyans. Technically the king, although he doesn't consider himself as that because King Vegeta will come back soon enough. Little do they know, they're on a planet right now that has Dragon Balls. But still, there is the risk of Frieza killing all the Saiyans again, so they're gonna wait regardless. Beerus learns of Vegeta's drive and how he believes he can stop Frieza. But Whis warns Vegeta that something equally evil has awoken recently. It's not just Frieza that's stronger. There's something else out there. In his search for Saiyans, there are actually two more he located. Now, hearing that they were evil, Beerus didn't go after them because neither of them could have been the Super Saiyan God. But this is big news to Vegeta because he didn't know there were two other Saiyans out there, specifically evil ones. He thought there were more Saiyans out there, but shouldn't the evil ones all be gone by now? And that's probably the huge power he was sensing that fought Frieza. It definitely did feel evil. Vegeta continues enjoying the food in order to drown out his worries, but then a woman approaches him. Someone who came to this tournament for fun as a spectator, and is intrigued by all the weird people that just showed up. The cat guy, the dude with the mohawk, the blue man, etc, etc. They're definitely all costume entertainment, especially all the people in armor. Although she saw that they were all following Vegeta's order, so she assumed that he's the ringleader. And she goes up to him asking what their performance act is all about. Because that's clearly what it is. They staged that fight above the World Tournament, and that was pretty fun to watch. She thinks that type of entertainment would be good for a Capsule Corp party. It definitely is quite the spectacle. He learned her name's Bulma, and she asks why they're all dressed in weird armor besides Vegeta. He doesn't think the armor's weird, he just took it off temporarily. Anyways, they all continue enjoying the tournament festivities, and the Kais return home, bringing all the Saiyans back too. Shallot ends up going with Beerus and Whis, and Giblet actually tags along with him because Beerus wonders if it's something hereditary. Either way, they're gonna get to the bottom of it. One person doesn't leave though. It's Kakarot. He decides to stay on Earth for a little longer because he came here before and kinda wants to stay more. He asked them to send his ship on autopilot so he could return when he wants, and he's not really sure why, but it feels like Earth is kind of calling to him. Also, with Earth facing the threat of Babidi, he's worried it might face other threats. Thankfully, the androids never showed up because Shallot and Giblet were very thorough with the Red Ribbon Army, and Piccolo was never unleashed by the Pilaf gang. They were also stopped by Shallot and Giblet. Not that he knows any of this, just worth mentioning. Kakarot wonders if Earth will face any other threats, and he wants someone to protect it, so that'll be him. Earth has helped them out so far too. Kakarot also kinda likes this planet, and the food here is great. Plus, he recognizes that Beerus is probably going to return for the food because he did say that, and he could use this to hopefully train under Beerus once he returns. He thinks he can make a good impression when he sees Beerus again. Well, the other Saiyans are all fine with this, but Kakarot's family expects to see him back soon. Bardock and Gine hope he's going to be okay here, but Kakarot says it'll be fine. Think of it as a temporary vacation, and he's still going to be training here. The Earthlings know about Ki and have their own training methods, so maybe there's something for him to learn here too that he doesn't know about. Chi-Chi's already shown him a lot of good things about this planet, and he's curious about what else is in store. Oh, he's going to be spending more time with that girl. Bardock, Gine, and Raditz all feel like they see what's happening here. Well, they all return home, and they tell Kakarot that ship should be here in about a week. He can come back whenever he feels, but hopefully sooner rather than later because they don't know when they're going to need him again. He will be back soon. But let's rewind a bit. Back to Turles and Cumber, right after Cumber awakened. Turles is amazed at Cumber's power. He's uncontrollable right now though, and if anyone else were there besides Turles, he would immediately attack and try to kill them. but he could feel it in Turles' ki. He's an ally. He has a similar type of ki to him, and weirdly enough, it's like Cumber can innately sense that he's family. Very largely removed, but still related. Turles learns of what happened to him. Far back into the Saiyans' history, he was defeated by a powerful good Saiyan, one who is empowered by other Saiyans and then transformed into something else. He hates the good Saiyans, and he learns from Turles that some of them are still alive, but he could feel something else. He could sense that far away, there's a new presence that's awoken, and despite himself not being divine, being the legendary evil Saiyan and basically a counter to the original Saiyan God, he and even Turles can sense a shift in the universe's balance. More so Cumber. It feels like his mortal enemy has awoken once more, but it was brief, and it eventually disappeared. What he sensed was actually Shallot fighting on Earth, and then eventually fighting Beerus. Cumber did try to keep track of it, but it fully vanished. That's because it went to Beerus' realm. Could this be it? Their key to finding the other Saiyans? Turles hoped that they'd be allies, but no. They're mortal enemies to Cumber, and by extension, they're probably his mortal enemies too. He's not sure how to feel about that. He may be evil, but he has no reason to kill fellow Saiyans other than his ancestral ties. He'd rather not kill fellow Saiyans, but it seems their fates tie to this. And besides, what's more important to him is power, and if this leads him to more strength, as well as Saiyan domination, then so be it. Cumber is his new ally after all, so whatever he does next will be in both their best interests. They still have Frieza to deal with too. Kakarot eventually does return home, but he will be going back to Earth soon enough. He has kind of an obligation there now. He doesn't exactly say what because it's hard to explain, but Bardock and Gine look surprised, and then Raditz chimes in. He and that woman, huh? It's gotta be because of that. Well, yeah, it's because of that. Raditz slaps his brother on the back. Good for him. Anyways, Kakarot did find out while on the planet that they actually have their own set of Dragon Balls too. They still do need to get rid of Frieza though and sort everything else out because it would be kind of pointless to revive the Saiyans if they all just die immediately after. Although a lot of time has passed and Vegeta's getting pretty antsy. He wants to get them revived soon. But Shallot actually has returned alongside with Giblet. Only temporarily though, they went back to the planet right after. But they found out something pretty interesting from Whis. Whis decided to look into their origins and consulted the Namekian Book of Legends for this. Per Beerus' request, of course. This was only one of the sources that he looked at, but he found out that the Super Saiyan God could actually be brought about through a ritual, and from what it sounds like, Shallot accidentally was part of the Super Saiyan God ritual. By now, Giblet actually has Super Saiyan God as well, although he unlocked it through training. Shallot accidentally did the Super Saiyan God ritual. So yes, it is still part of their blood, but theoretically, they could do the Super Saiyan God ritual and everybody else. And even though the Saiyans are good, they're still warriors at heart and they would probably want to grow on their own accord. Although they don't really have too much of a choice, they kind of do need to do the Super Saiyan God ritual if they want to keep up with everything happening in the universe right now, especially after sensing Frieza's power up against whoever he was fighting. So now we enter another brief time skip. About 2 years have passed since Baby was defeated. Over this time, Cumber did need to recover, and thanks to Turles' help, he did fully recover. It took a while because he was pretty heavily injured. I mean, the whole reason he got sent to this planet in the first place was because he got defeated by the Super Saiyan God in the past. Not to mention, he was frozen for centuries. Even though Turles did thaw him out, he still needed more. His body was in pretty rough shape, which is good because he's going to grow from healing, but also bad because obviously he was pretty injured, and he needed to get used to his power again. Being frozen for centuries isn't really something he could just brush off right away, no matter his strength. Plus, Turles needed to catch him up to speed on everything, and he wanted to test out Cumber's power, as well as train him up a bit. But still, even with those injuries and the fact that he was frozen, he's resilient. He's a Saiyan after all, and he's back to his full power normal self. Of course, he's grown from it too, so his full power is higher than before. One advantage that Cumber has is the fact that he can actually sense godly ki, which surprises Turles because he can't really feel what that is, nor did he even know it existed. As the antithesis to the Super Saiyan God, and being familiar with the Super Saiyan God since he did fight him before, Cumber can vaguely feel that power whenever it does pop up, and recently it's been popping up more and more. Which means he of course wants to seek it out because if he's sensing it this far away, that means the Super Saiyan God is not only active, but really strong. And he feels like the power is coming from multiple sources. He's not really too sure though, and the only way to know for sure is by actually seeking it out. So, Cumber and Turles head out once more, and after all this time, they finally find the settlement where the Saiyans are. They can't believe it. And there's a good amount of Saiyans here too. Sure, it's not a lot, but an entire group of Saiyans all together. This is great. Well, at least in Turles' eyes. Cumber views them as enemies until proven otherwise. In Turles' eyes though, every Saiyan is an ally to him, even if they don't share the same motives, and he is a bit worried. He doesn't really know if unleashing Cumber was the right thing, because while Turles is an evil conqueror, Cumber is just really evil. There's nothing redeeming about him. He probably would have killed Turles for fun if they didn't share the same energy, and they weren't both related evil Saiyans. But despite Turles' own evil nature, he is a little bit more pragmatic, so he makes the first contact with the Saiyans. Immediately they're a bit suspicious because this power of his feels very familiar. They don't see his full power right away, but something about his key signature feels like they've sensed it before. And it takes them a bit, but they eventually figure out that this is who is fighting Frieza. Well, at least they know he's a fellow Saiyan and not an enemy. Hopefully. I mean, his ki does feel evil. Also, weirdly enough, he looks exactly like Bardock and Kakarot. Turles says it's mere coincidence. He's not related to those two as far as he knows. He tells them all about how he fought Frieza, and he knows now that Frieza's back. He regrets not handling that as he should have because Frieza was right there. He could have gotten the kill and finished it, but he got too sloppy. But anyways, he wants to band together with the Saiyans. He's been looking for them for a while, and unlike Frieza, it's not to destroy them. Well, unless they give him a reason to, but he doesn't say this out loud. He proclaims he'll lead the Saiyans to prosperity if they embrace their warrior side. He could tell they're clearly powerful, but they're holding themselves back. He's gotten in touch with his own roots, and while it's different from these Saiyans, he feels like they're wasting their potential. But Vegeta then steps up. He won't be leading the Saiyans anywhere. Vegeta already is their leader, and he can tell something's fishy about this whole thing. Sure, they might both be Saiyans, but he can feel that evilness within Turles, as well as that other guy. Turles isn't looking for a fight. All Saiyans are his allies. He was simply proposing a truce between the two of them. But then Cumber steps up. He can't take any more of this. This prince is a weak excuse for a prince. Turles told him everything that happened. It's his father's fault that the planet was destroyed. King Vegeta was a weakling. They should have acted sooner. The Saiyans used to be much better when they were actually warriors. But then they became too passive. They developed a set of morals. They could have been far stronger if they were their true warrior selves like before. That war between the good and evil Saiyans set them back. The Saiyans were too complacent and docile, and they still are. They should rule the universe, not Frieza. And with Vegeta's leadership, they surely won't be doing that. To prove a point, he tries to attack Vegeta, but Vegeta effortlessly catches his attack. Something's off about the Saiyan. He's really strong just in base, and it causes Vegeta to flash into Super Saiyan God just to catch the attack, but still, he does catch it effortlessly. And Cumber's taken aback at first, same with Turles. So this was what they were sensing. All along it was Vegeta, the Super Saiyan God. Immediately this gives Cumber flashbacks to what happened before. Vegeta's his enemy. Vegeta would love to welcome more Saiyans here, but clearly these Saiyans have different ideals in mind. And he agrees with Turles too. He'd rather not fight. But if they need to, then so be it. Cumber's enraged. He instantly powers up and starts a fight with Vegeta. And Turles tries to stop it. Things are getting out of hand, but he has already decided that Cumber is his ally. Plus, the Saiyans are definitely not going to accept him as easily since he brought Cumber here, so it looks like he'll have to fight. What a shame. He really didn't want it to come to this. He powers up into his evil Saiyan form, with Cumber using the same type of power. But then, the rest of the Saiyans start transforming, and Cumber's shocked beyond belief. Around him, every Saiyan's hair changes color. That same reddish hue that he saw from before when the Super Saiyan God defeated him all those years ago. And he feels that same godly ki. Weirdly enough, some of them don't turn red, some of them turn blue, with Vegeta being one of the ones to turn blue. Although there's one that's unlike the others, one who hasn't gotten the Super Saiyan God form yet because they were kind of scared of how it would affect him, even though in reality, it would probably be the best thing for him. It's another pretty large Saiyan. His hair turns green. It's Broly, using his full power form. And yet, even without a God form, he still is one of the strongest Saiyans here. Not to mention he has spirit control to go along with it, and if he needs to heal others and act as support, he could do that too. Seeing all these Super Saiyan gods just enrages Cumber even further. He hasn't even met Shala and Giblet yet. These have to all be false Super Saiyan gods because they don't look like they're related to the one he fought in the past. But he's grown far stronger since then. Even if he needs to take on multiple at once, he will. He's then attacked by Broly, noticing that his power is growing alongside his rage. He thinks the two of them are similar, but Cumber says there's no way they are. Broly is far too good-hearted. Cumber's pure evil. The two clash with a couple other Saiyans helping Broly, and individually, Cumber is stronger than anyone here. But he's fighting an entire army of Super Saiyan gods, with some having Super Saiyan Blue by now. And as that battle's going on, someone attacks Turles. There are actually a couple of Saiyans on him, but one of the main ones attacking him is one that looks exactly like him. It's Kakarot, using Super Saiyan Blue. And the rest of his family follows suit using the same form. Turles feels Cumber's power growing as well as his own, but with this many Super Saiyan Blues and Super Saiyan Gods against him, there's no way they could win. And Kakarot recognizes this. He tries to level with Turles. Retreat now. They don't need to fight. The past is exactly that. The past. They're not enemies anymore. And from what he could tell, Turles seems to be a modern Saiyan, just related to that other guy. He doesn't know why he's so obsessed with the evil Saiyans of the past. Kakarot can obviously tell that Turles isn't a good guy. He doesn't even know what Turles has done, but just from his appearance he could tell he's a conqueror. Just because of that they should fight him because he's an enemy. Maybe not to them, but everybody else. Although Turles is clearly hesitant, and it's so strange. He knew that he'd have to fight the Saiyans eventually, and after all that he's accomplished, and all his goals that he still has in mind, he knows this is merely a stepping stone, but why does he still harbor that doubt? Why is he hesitant about fighting the other Saiyans? As a Saiyan whose pride stems from his power and his warrior spirit, why does he of all people not want to fight them? He believes that the Saiyans are superior to everybody else, but he also acknowledges the fact that Saiyans that won't stand by him should die. Although now he's feeling way more conflicted than he expected. Seeing the Saiyans face to face for the first time ever, he doesn't know what to think or do. But at the same time he does need Cumber, and he wants more strength for himself. His goals conflict with those of the good Saiyans. Plus, his evil ki and his evil nature is pretty intoxicating. And Kakarot can see that he's kind of striking a nerve with Turles, so he asks the other Saiyans to hold off, just fighting him alone. Kakarot and Turles fight one-on-one, and he reminds Turles that it's 2 versus a group. Right now, in his fight with Turles, Turles is clearly the stronger one, but Kakarot wants to fight him alone, leveling with him as a Saiyan. He's sure that Turles would love a fair one-on-one fight like this. At full power, nothing held back. Turles does have a lot of power from the Tree of Might, but with the Saiyans now getting this powerful, it's definitely not enough. All the way on Beerus' planet, Shallot and Giblet are still training. Even though there's all these other Super Saiyan gods, Beerus has only chosen them to be his rivals because they were the first ones to get the form, and in terms of lineage, they're directly related to the Super Saiyan god of the past. So, Beerus thinks they're special. But they sense this fight going on pretty quickly and decide they want to go there to help. Something big's going down and they can't miss out on it. Now back to New Planet Vegeta. Cumber is nearly defeated by Broly and is surrounded by all these other Saiyan gods. He can feel more power deep within him, but still can't draw it all out. These transformations they're using, he's unfamiliar with them. He only knew about the Super Saiyan God form, and there's no way he could access that. But there has to be more. Grade 8, Super Saiyan, something like that. Or just draw out his power as an evil Saiyan. Keep growing from that alone. Use his rage. Maybe that Saiyan Broly is somewhat similar to him, at least from the sense that they both get power from rage. Although both in very different contexts. Kakarot continues his battle with Turles too. But then, everything stops. Even Turles and Cumber stop fighting. It's like they all feel a shiver down their spine. There's a strong power approaching, and it's rapidly getting closer towards the planet. Paragus looks out into space. Whatever's getting closer isn't a ship, and it's moving really fast. Normally with ships they'd feel a couple of energies all packed together, but it's just one energy. And then as it gets closer and closer, they realize it is someone flying towards the planet, and they can instantly tell whose power it is. Turles simply utters one word, Frieza. And he starts laughing maniacally. Finally, his chance to actually defeat Frieza. Cumber has no sort of relation to Frieza, but he knows him because of Turles. A strong opponent, one who oppressed the Saiyans. He finally lands on the planet, right in the middle of Broly and Cumber. He sensed that power all the way out in space, and it led him right to the Saiyans. He couldn't feel the power of the godly Saiyans, but Turles and Cumber, he could definitely sense that at least. And it's like Christmas morning to him. He's surrounded by all the Saiyans he was looking to find. Maybe there are some others out there, but this was the big group, the one that he was looking for. Not to mention Turles, the one who nearly killed him. And he makes sure to taunt Turles too. He clearly didn't do a good enough job. Cumber has no interest in fighting this guy. He wants to continue fighting the Saiyans, although if Frieza gets in his way, he'll be sure to kill him. Now this is new. Frieza's never seen a Saiyan like this, nor felt the power of a Saiyan like this. Well, besides Turles. He feels like if a Saiyan this strong existed, he would have known about him a while ago. Whis is taking Shallot, Giblet, and Beerus all the way to New Planet Vegeta. Beerus and Whis aren't going to get involved at all, but Beerus at least will watch the showdown. But as they're flying over, Shallot and Giblet can feel something amiss. A new power's arrived. It's Frieza, and he was strong before, but something's different. They need to get there quick. All the other Saiyans feel the same sense of fear. Frieza begins powering up. You see, he hasn't just been twiddling his thumbs this entire time. And he's also learned not to get too confident against the Saiyans because he doesn't know what they have in store. Turles at least is familiar with his golden form, and he powers up to showcase that, but then the shimmer of it begins changing. He's accessed a new stage of power. Frieza fully powers up, showing off his newest power, his black form. This is a huge surprise to all the Saiyans because they didn't even see golden in the first place. Plus, even Turles and Cumber didn't know about the black form. Now, unlike normal, Frieza wasn't training in some place where time passed slowly, but rather he was just training this entire time. I mean, a lot of time has passed since the beginning of the story. And especially after encountering Turles, he kicked into high gear, which is how he unlocked this black form. Turles is honestly pretty amazed to see him in One Piece, but he's not in One Piece, he's in Dragon Ball. But Frieza says he was fully able to recover from that attack, and Turles almost did have him, but he didn't quite finish the job. Cumber doesn't care about any of this nonsense. He simply needs to grow stronger, and Frieza's an obstacle to him too. Everyone here besides Turles is an enemy, and even now he's unsure about Turles too. But you know what, if Frieza really is the strongest here, Cumber's gonna test out that power. Without hesitation, he charges towards the Emperor ready to showcase his full power. But the battle is very brief. Had Frieza simply been in his golden form, Cumber would have definitely defeated him, but this form is way too much for him. At least in his current stage. And it's pretty interesting. It seems like Cumber doesn't have any sort of transformations. Frieza easily dispatches him and then looks around. Huh, you didn't even realize. All the Saiyans here have weird hair colors. There's Broly with green hair, and then the rest of them are all blue or red. Well, besides Turles, of course. Years ago, had he encountered a Super Saiyan, he would have been terrified. But here he's seeing something way beyond that. He's seeing Super Saiyan God. And the combination of those two forms as well. To think, those legends are pretty much meaningless to him now. Even with multiple of them together, they're not going to stand a chance against him. With Cumber easily defeated, he's tossed to the side. Although he shows Cumber the same courtesy that Turles showed him, not killing him. It's not like Cumber will be a problem for him anyways. But just as Frieza is about to fight, there's a giant pillar of light that appears. Beerus and Whis arrive with Shallot and Giblet. And Frieza's a bit taken aback at first to see the god of destruction here. But Beerus isn't here to get involved. He's just going to watch this battle. For that slight moment, they did see Frieza look a bit fearful because it seems like Beerus could have actually defeated him. Although Beerus looks around and is pretty happy at what he sees. A bunch of Super Saiyan gods and Super Saiyan blues. These Saiyans have definitely been putting in the work recently, and they came to drop off Shallot and Giblet because, well, they're going to be useful. Having 2 extra Super Saiyan Blues here would be really helpful. So Shallot and Giblet immediately power up, ready to face off against Frieza. They don't even get the rundown about Turles and Cumber because it seems like for the time being, it's an enemy of my enemy situation. Well, at least for Turles. He's more concerned about killing Frieza than his fellow Saiyans, so he goes along with it. He'll wipe them out later. Vegeta can't believe all this is happening at once. First of all, these 2 other Saiyans show up, and they're both evil Saiyans. But at the same time, Frieza's now here. It's not like they're unprepared, it's just this is very unexpected, especially with both of these things happening at once, and the former not being expected at all. Well, Frieza's fine with this. If Beerus wants a show, he'll be sure to give him a show. His aura grows much larger as he charges Ki, powering up to the max. After all this time, he finally gets to kill these Saiyans. All at once, no less. He could just blow up this planet and get it done with, but that's not going to be satisfying enough. He trained for this specific reason. He wants to kill them with his own hands, not with some cheap method like that. Frieza takes on all of the remaining Saiyans at once. It is a bit tough to coordinate because obviously Frieza's way stronger than them individually, and there's a bunch of them fighting all together, and despite how well they fight together, it's still all these people fighting together at once, which is really hard to do. Turles can't believe how much stronger Frieza's grown. If only he had killed him back then. Why didn't he make sure he was dead? He didn't realize Frieza would have grown this powerful too. Now, Turles himself has grown pretty strong. He's trained a bit with Cumber, and he's definitely had more fruits from the Tree of Might since the last time he encountered Frieza. But Frieza grew at such a rapid pace. Although, maybe there is a chance. It's a good thing they're meeting Frieza now rather than later, because if they met him later on, he probably would have been so strong that they would have stood no chance at all. Here there is at least a sliver of hope, especially with Turles fighting on their side, and all of these Saiyans together, especially thanks to Beerus and Whis bringing Shallot and Giblet here. And Beerus and Whis are actually not going to intervene at all. If the Saiyans die, well, that means none of them were worthy enough to be his rivals. Even if it takes all of them at once, as long as they defeat Frieza, that will prove to him that they're worthy of that, specifically Shallot and Giblet. Show him the true power of the Super Saiyan God's descendants. Barely conscious nearby is Cumber. He hears all this talk, and he can sense the power of Shallot and Giblet, but hearing this, it sets off alarms in his brain. Wait, did he say Super Saiyan God? And not just that, the Super Saiyan God's descendants. Everyone around him had that same red hair, which he didn't really care about. They were just showing the form off. He tries to stand up, still with blurred vision, and through it he sees Shallot and Giblet. Both have blue hair now, but just from their silhouettes alone, they look like who he fought in the past, and he can feel it in their ki too. They are the descendants of the original Super Saiyan God he fought. As the Saiyans all fight Frieza, Turles also comes to see something different. He can see that these Saiyans do possess the pride and the drive of the Saiyans that he expected, despite not being ruthless like him. Maybe seeing them in combat was a good thing because now he gets to see the side of them that he thought wasn't there. How they've grown and how they fight with no regrets, it's great. They definitely embody the nature of the Saiyans, even if they're not like him. Maybe he was wrong to pick a fight against them. He didn't even really want it in the first place. But it's not important for him to focus on that right now. He needs to focus on surviving and, more importantly, killing Frieza. Paragus then falls back for a bit and calls Vegeta to him. He has an idea. With all of their power combined, they probably can defeat Frieza. The issue is combining that power. It's really hard to launch a full power coordinated attack like that all at once. Especially because Frieza's just not going to sit still for that. Like, getting all the Saiyans together to launch an attack at once would be great, but that's not going to be possible. Although, Paragus can try something similar. He can act as a beacon for them. Using spirit control, he can collect energy from all the Saiyans, and then channel it into one Saiyan who could land the final attack. And he wants that Saiyan to be Vegeta. Vegeta isn't the strongest of the group. Broly, Shallot, and Giblet are stronger, but that's not the point. First of all, those 3 are going to be needed to actually hold Frieza back and distract him. But more important to Paragus, he feels like it's right for Vegeta of all people to do this. This fight is a fight that they all share, but Vegeta's their leader. This is more personal for him too, and he's shown them great guidance so far, so Paragus asks him to guide them to victory, and Vegeta accepts without hesitation. Paragus can collect all of that power, so he communicates with all the Saiyans telepathically, telling them what to do. One by one they start to grant power. It's very little by little because they still need to use their own power to fight. And it's not like they all do it at once. Like, first it's Bardock, then Raditz, then Gine, then so on, then so on. All of the Saiyans eventually lend all of their power to him, and it's a very slow process. They are able to hold off Frieza, but it's starting to seem hopeless. Like, look at how quickly he defeated Cumber, and even with all of them fighting together at once, it's still not enough to take him on. There was actually a point during the battle where some of them were starting to lose hope, like this happened too soon. They weren't ready to fight Frieza like this. But that's not the case. They are ready. Everything they've trained for, everything they prepared for, and that journey that led them to this planet, it was all leading up to this very moment. Frieza was supposed to encounter them here. And this is where they could finally free themselves of him, where they could finally avenge all of the fallen Saiyans, and finally get rid of Frieza once and for all. They've suffered for decades under Frieza. Even before the destruction of Planet Vegeta, they suffered. Paragus continues collecting energy. It's so much that he can barely contain it within himself, so he starts to channel it into Vegeta. And then they get the final piece of what they need. Broly, Shallot, and Giblet lend their energies. And surprisingly, even Turles lends his energy too. He can't let a fellow Saiyan die, especially by the hands of Frieza. He would have loved to be the one to kill Frieza himself, but he missed that chance before. Even if he missed that chance, he could still be a part of it here. He still can take a part in defeating Frieza. Frieza then floats up into the sky and points out each finger at all the Saiyans below. This fight's getting boring for him. He's had his fun with them, and now he'll just kill them. From each finger, he launches an individual beam, ready to kill 10 of the Saiyans all at once. And Vegeta's about to jump in and stop this, but it's already too late. The beams have all been launched and 10 random targets have been chosen. But the lasers never hit their targets. Well, all the targets were hit by something. A couple of the Saiyans are injured, but it's like something hit them and knocked them out of the way of the attack. And they weren't hit by intentionally lethal attacks. Not too far away, Vegeta feels a familiar energy, and he smiles, feeling comfort in this. Tarble and Nappa immediately recognize it too. The nearest planet illuminates the sky, and on that planet sits a lone sniper, Granola. Glad to see the Saiyans are still okay. He's been watching this fight and was waiting for the right time to intervene. He couldn't really do too much here, and there's nothing his attacks could have done against Frieza. But with his aim, he just saved all those Saiyans, and for a brief moment, he did distract Frieza because Frieza looks around to see who did that. It's not like he could see to another planet, unlike Granola. His vision has improved heavily. Not that Frieza would have been able to match his vision before anyways. And with this brief distraction, all of the other Saiyans give this final push, lending the rest of their energy to Paragus, who channels it into Vegeta. And Vegeta feels such immense power flowing through him that he could barely contain it now too, just like Paragus. What he's feeling right now, this isn't just power, this is hope. It's the spirit of the Saiyans, their drive. It's the pure essence of the Saiyans, held all within the Saiyan Prince, wielded as a weapon to finally get rid of Frieza. And Vegeta powers up beyond his maximum. He starts glowing radiantly, and he dashes across the battlefield. For a split second, Frieza looked away trying to find where Granola shot from. But he turns back and sees Vegeta darting towards him, surprisingly fast too. None of the other Saiyans move that fast, and the power that's coming off of him, even the pressure from his aura alone, Frieza could tell something's different with it. And Vegeta yells out, "No more." This is where Frieza dies, and where the Saiyans are reborn. He hits Frieza with a devastating punch, flying right through him, tearing the Emperor right in half. But the second Vegeta made contact, all of his energy went into Frieza too. As Frieza split apart, he thinks it's nothing. He survived worse before. This isn't like any attack he's faced before though. The spirit and energy of all the Saiyans courses through him, a combined attack channeling all of their power. Desperately, Frieza tries to hang on, but it's too much for him to handle. He's consumed by all the power flowing through him, screaming out as he turned into a brilliant explosion. A nice fireworks show for the Saiyans. Vegeta floats there nearby, injured, tired out, but also content. He put all of his power into that attack too, of course, and he instantly drops down into his base form and then falls to the ground, unconscious with all the other Saiyans ready to celebrate. And you know, Beerus was pretty impressed by that. Their fight with Frieza is over, but their fight isn't over. There's another power surging nearby. The Saiyans are all pretty badly beaten and also pretty worn out too. And Cumber's no exception, injured and also tired. But still, that thing he heard before about the Super Saiyan God's descendants, it can't be true, right? With an immense amount of adrenaline flowing through his body, he stands up, barely being able to do so at first, but then regaining his composure. He gets a good look at Shallot and Giblet, and slowly, he steps towards them. They turn around and immediately feel his evil presence, knowing that something's wrong. They still didn't get the rundown about what happened. Nappa tells them that guy's apparently some ancient evil Saiyan, and that rings a bell for the twins. That's what Whis and Beerus told them about. They look over at Turles too, and they could feel the same energy coming from him, but this is different. Turles is a modern evil Saiyan. This is an ancient evil Saiyan. And as Cumber gets closer and closer to them, his power grows more and more. His aura grows fiercer and fiercer, embarrassed by Frieza, and now having to encounter the descendants of the person that defeated him so long ago. It's all so humiliating. Where is his strength as a warrior? Why is he not doing anything to stop this? And his eyes dart over at Turles. He fought alongside them. Is Turles being swayed by these weak Saiyans? Turles always had a soft spot for Saiyans in general, but Cumber can't believe this behavior. It's despicable, and Turles doesn't know what's happening with Cumber. Now, Turles isn't good at all, but he sees no reason to exterminate these Saiyans, especially after just fighting with them. But Cumber definitely has something different in mind. He's wholly consumed by rage and power, and those Saiyans should all be extinguished. His aura grows fiercer and fiercer. And then, his hair starts to change too. His power is overflowing. Now, he's definitely not as strong as Frieza, but with all the Saiyans being so weakened and having given all their energy to Vegeta, it's definitely going to be no easy task fighting Cumber, especially because he transforms. While still retaining the power of an evil Saiyan, he then turns into something they're all too familiar with, a Super Saiyan. For the first time, Cumber's become a Super Saiyan, but with the added bonus of him having an immense amount of power on top of that, displayed in his evil aura. So, yes, they defeated Frieza, and their fight with him is over. But now, round 2 begins against a new enemy. If they're going to survive, they'll have to defeat Cumber as well. Beerus and Whis find it quite interesting. First, they had to get rid of Frieza, but he wasn't the only reminder of their past, the only thing that held them back. It seems the evil Saiyans weren't completely dealt with either. Beerus and Whis wonder how those Saiyans will deal with this. Cumber continues growing further in Super Saiyan. Everyone by now is already weakened by Frieza and their previous fights with Turles and Cumber as well. Shallot and Giblet are in the best conditions because they arrived here latest. But with Cumber getting a second wind and being that strong, they're not too sure what to do here as their next option. Cumber first looks over at Turles. then launching a concussive blast, setting Turles flying across the planet. Turles is too weak-minded to be his ally. Even though Turles only temporarily teamed up with the Saiyans just to fight Frieza, Cumber thinks he was using them as a crutch. He shouldn't have done that. He could have handled that alone, and he's clearly hesitating against the Saiyans as well, otherwise he wouldn't have done that. He's glad Frieza came here. It showed him the light and helped him grow stronger. Now he knows Turles is not someone to be trusted. But more importantly, Cumber's grown from that experience, and he's going to use that power to wipe out the rest of the Saiyans for good. His ki dramatically surges, and everyone gets back up, quickly jumping into fight. From that nearby planet, a bunch of blasts are fired from Granola as well. Cumber simply turns around, launching his own blast, swallowing up Granola's attacks. Now, unlike Granola, his eyesight isn't good enough to tell him where Granola is and let him attack him directly. But you know what? If that guy's going to be a cowardly sniper, then Cumber will just get rid of him for good, charging up his own blast aimed in the general direction of the planet that Granola's on. He can't tell where he is, but this will wipe out the entire solar system and everything behind it. So, wherever Granola's hiding, he will be eliminated by this. Cumber launches the blast, but before it leaves the atmosphere, somebody teleports in front of it and then kicks it away. It's Broly, barely saving Granola in the process. Without hesitation, he then jumps in and starts wrestling with Cumber directly, as all the other Saiyans jump back. Cumber admires how tenacious this Saiyan is. He's strong, and he has power derived from rage, almost similar to him in a way. But still, he's too weak to win here. Look at him, trying to control his Saiyan nature. If he wants true power, he should let it take control of him instead. As the two struggle against each other, Broly then splits himself into multiple fighters. Now, these clones are all weak because Broly didn't want to split off too much of his power, but this is more of a distraction. Cumber doesn't know which one is the most powerful Broly, and they still attack him. But the main objective for this is different. Either way though, Cumber finally comes to see what Broly is. He's mutated because he has the blood of an evil Saiyan coursing through him, doesn't he? Yeah, that has to be it. The blood of an evil Saiyan in the body of a good Saiyan. And the reason he struggles for control so much is because that evil side tries to take over, but his good nature struggles for its own control too. Hence why he used to go berserk when trying to use his full power. It's very small, but Cumber could feel that evilness within his ki. And you know what? He sees an opportunity here. This could be good for something. He wonders if he could bring Broly to his side by amplifying that evil ki. And Paragus can't believe what he's hearing either. Is that really the case? He never even thought of it like that. But Cumber then sees that some of Broly's clones aren't actually attacking him. They're going over to the other Saiyans. The reason he split himself up is so he could actually heal the others, and Paragus ends up doing the same, figuring out what Broly's doing. Cumber then simply lifts a hand in the air, launching a blast that splits up and goes towards all the Broly clones, destroying them all. But it's already too late because Broly's healed the other Saiyans, although that doesn't really matter to Cumber. What he's more focused on now is Broly. You know, if he puts his evil ki into another Saiyan, maybe that'll make them go berserk, but especially someone like Broly, that might work out really well. That could amplify his evilness. He thinks it's long suppressed and it might not even be there anymore. But whatever it takes, he'll make Broly give in to his evil nature. And then, the next Saiyans. Broly and Paragus have now lost a lot of their energy because they spent all of that healing others, but at least this means the others are healed a fair amount. And Paragus continues going around healing people who haven't been fully healed. He eventually finds Turles as well. Turles is pretty injured and mostly in disbelief. He can't believe what he's unleashed either. He knew Cumber was a loose cannon, but to think he turned on him directly. Paragus is surprised he didn't realize this before. He should have known when he freed that guy, because Paragus doesn't even know what his deal is, and he could just tell by looking at him. That's not a guy to trust. Turles thought it would work out, but clearly, the two of them don't have the same goals, even if he once thought they did. Turles is an evil Saiyan by blood, but he's not a mindless monster like that just destroys everything in his path just for the sake of power. Well, he kinda does. But he had a purpose for getting that power. It was mainly to defeat Frieza, and just to prove the superiority of the Saiyans. But Frieza's gone. Paragus doesn't get this. The Saiyans were fine as a peaceful race. Why must Turles go on this conquest? What's with this ideal that he's so much better than everyone for being an evil Saiyan, or just a Saiyan in general? He has way too much pride in himself, and it ended up nearly leading him to his death. Turles still has value to other Saiyans, but now he's kind of rethinking things, especially after seeing them in person. He didn't want to go against them in the first place, but he shouldn't have brought Cumber back. That was inherently going against the Saiyans in general. Maybe the new way of Saiyan life isn't as bad as he thought. He thought they lost their way and became weak. But then another Saiyan butts in. Kakarot arrives. No, they didn't lose their way. Turles did. Clearly the path that these Saiyans have taken is the right path, and not the one that Turles took. And you know, if Turles really does value the Saiyans as a whole, he should prove that by fighting alongside them. Why fight against them? Cumber is the enemy here, and he's turned on Turles. There's no reason to be on his side anymore. And Turles can't believe it. The other Saiyans aren't like him at all, but they're still giving him a chance. They're good Saiyans fighting for survival. They finally got rid of Frieza, and they simply just want to bring all the other Saiyans back, at least the good ones. But they still haven't reached their true goal of survival until Cumber is dealt with. The only thing standing in the way of the Saiyans actually prospering is the fact that Cumber's around. Turles made things worse if anything. Bringing Cumber back is like working with Frieza. Both will lead to the full destruction of the Saiyans. But still, it's not over yet. Kakarot thinks Turles can change too. He's clearly hesitant about what he's done, and that's why they didn't kill him right away. Turles can still make things right, but he needs to decide what he wants to do. Meanwhile, Cumber is still fighting Broly. and eventually he gives some of his evil ki to him. The evil ki begins to take over Broly. With any Saiyan, this would have the same effect, making them go berserk as they can't contain it, basically affecting them with the nature of an evil Saiyan just like he and Turles have. But for Broly it's different, somebody who already had issues controlling his rage and such. Sure, this means Cumber has to give away some of his ki, but still, this is a fine experiment. It'll be fun to see what the outcome of this is. As he lends Broly more evil ki, Broly's power then returns, and he goes berserk in the process. But Shallot and Giblet step in to intervene. Thankfully they didn't do the Super Saiyan God ritual on him because otherwise he would have been completely unstoppable right now with the evil ki. Although it does make them wonder what evil ki would do if he were in a Super Saiyan God form right now. No point worrying about that. They need to fix Broly and stop Cumber as well. Broly begins to lose control as he struggles further, trying to regain his control back, and he fights Shallot and Giblet, while Cumber returns to fighting the other Saiyans all at once. Thankfully Broly is pretty injured and he lost a lot of power by healing the others, so this power up from Cumber took a little bit of energy from Cumber, and it basically just restored Broly back to where he was before. Shallot and Giblet are two of the stronger Saiyans too, so maybe they could take him on alone. The rest of the group tries fighting off Cumber, but an unexpected ally joins. Turles re-enters the fight, having been healed by Paragus, agreeing with him and Kakarot. They're right, Cumber's in their way. And besides, what's the point of having Cumber around if Turles wants to be the strongest? He's another obstacle, just like Frieza, someone who he needs to defeat. Not just for his sake, but the sake of the Saiyans as a whole. He fights alongside the other Saiyans, and Cumber hates seeing this. He knew Turles was against him, but to see him fighting alongside the Super Saiyan gods, that's despicable. But Turles doesn't directly fight Cumber at first. He goes for Broly, simply placing a hand on him and absorbing all the evil ki that Broly took in, taking it for himself and using it to empower himself further. Broly returns back to normal as the ki surges through Turles. He controls it all for himself. The true nature of a Saiyan isn't to plow down everything in their way. He now sees what it is. Saiyans get their strength through tenacity and always aiming to improve. Besides, this fight is now a fight for survival for him as well. Cumber stands in his way too. And now he directly goes for Cumber. Cumber's now finally being pushed back. His own strength is being used against him because now it's fueling Turles. And all the other Saiyans can fully focus on him once more. Even with Broly and Paragus out of the fight, they now have the strength to back themselves up. Cumber tries to tap into more power as a Super Saiyan, but they're slowly chipping away at him. Vegeta wonders how this will go. He seems almost unstoppable, but these Saiyans have no limits. They can overcome unstoppable. And as they all fight together, Bardock asks Kakarot what he saw in Turles, and Kakarot says honestly, he's not sure. He could just feel that they could lead him down a better path, and it would be nice to have another strong ally like that too. He clearly was unsure, and Kakarot simply showing him the way. Granola is also still trying to provide support as well, although it's really hard from the planet he's on, but still, he does what he can. He's watching over everything, and even if he can't do much, he's not going to let his brothers die without at least trying. Frieza's gone, but this fight is his too. And thanks to Broly and Paragus, Vegeta is now fully healed again, and got a nice boost in power too, especially with how injured he was against Frieza. He powers up once more, showcasing an evolved version of Super Saiyan Blue, gained from the overflowing power that he had before, and he fights directly alongside Turles, the leader of the good Saiyans, and the person who tried to lead the evil Saiyans. Now fighting hand in hand, Kakarot, Shallot, and Giblet join at the forefront as well. And Bardock tries to add some of his power too. 5 godly Super Saiyans fighting together, alongside an evil Saiyan using his power to fight another evil Saiyan. And all the Super Saiyan gods channel their energy together. It's not intentional either. It's almost like they accidentally perform another Super Saiyan god ritual, except this time, Cumber's the target. As they coalesce all of their power together, it's channeled into Cumber. It's amplified, and it's not something he could hold either. Instead, it's poison to him, the pure energy of all these godly Super Saiyans all at once, those with righteous hearts. Vegeta says this will be the last time history repeats itself. They're done staying trapped in the past. But once more, the good Saiyans will overcome the evil Saiyan. With one final push, all of their ki is channeled into Cumber, and Turles jumps back, almost affected by it as well. Cumber's power continues overflowing, and he can't even contain it anymore. There's an internal battle inside of him. The godly ki of the other Super Saiyans courses through his veins, destroying him from the inside. And then, that ki all spills out. There's a blinding light as Cumber explodes, finally at his limit and unable to contend against this power all multiplied together. The Saiyans finally power down. Their battle is seemingly done, and Beerus commends them, stepping in and congratulating them for winning 2 fights. Yeah, he's actually been here this entire time, watching from the atmosphere above. It was quite a spectacle. They forgot why he was there and they wonder why he didn't get involved. Well, this wasn't his fight, and besides, his rivals had this in the bag. This really served as proof of the Saiyan's strength, and Vegeta realizes they finally made it. No longer do they have to live in Frieza's shadow. Every obstacle to the Saiyans is gone, although there is one more loose end. Turles. He makes it clear, he's not their enemy, but the Saiyans say he doesn't need to be a stranger to them. He clearly is conflicted, and he may be an evil Saiyan by blood, but he doesn't have to be like Cumber was. He could join them in their new Saiyan Empire. What do they mean? All the Saiyans are gone. It's just the small group of Saiyans. Well, not exactly. Bardock's family returns to Namek, and they make a wish from the Dragon Balls. They ask for Planet Vegeta to be restored. Now they need to figure out what to do to actually revive all of the Saiyans because a wish like this can't be done. They've been dead for so long, and Namek's Dragon Balls haven't actually been upgraded either. What dragon can grant a wish that brings back a group of people that have been dead for a while? Well, Vegeta, Tarbell, and Nappa have that covered. Oddly enough, the dragon on planet Cereal is pretty strong. I mean, we saw what it was capable of in the Granola arc. Taranba was able to make Granola the universe's strongest. So, I think reviving a group of people that have been dead for many years, that shouldn't be a big issue for him. So after Planet Vegeta is brought back, a wish is made to Taranba to bring all of the Saiyans back as well. At least all of the good ones. Saiyan society could finally live in peace once more, and they're now free from Frieza's oppression. Of course, one of the people brought back is King Vegeta. He can't believe it. He's been dead for a while, but now he's back in the living world. Back on his normal planet, surrounded by all of his fellow Saiyans. Another wish was made on Namek to actually send all the Saiyans here because some of them died on planets that were far away, and now every Saiyan is back on this planet. And King Vegeta finally reunites with his son. He can't express how proud he is, but he's also disappointed. He didn't get to see his sons grow into the fine warriors they are today. But at the very least, he could watch them usher in a new era of Saiyan society. Vegeta IV will still lead the Saiyans, and he's no longer going to be the prince. Officially, King Vegeta III passes on his title to Vegeta IV, making his son the new king of the Saiyans. Shallot and Giblet still stay with Beerus and Whis because Beerus is intrigued by them. Sure, there are plenty of other strong Saiyans, but Beerus wants to test them a little bit more. And while most of the Saiyans did return to this planet, some of them still do visit their old homes. Like Vegeta, Tarbell, and Nappa, they visit Cereal from time to time. Bardock's family, they visit Namek from time to time. And one permanently relocates somewhere else, Kakarot. In his time on Earth, he actually grew a lot closer with Chi-Chi. And his perfect timing too. After the defeat of Frieza and Cumber, now he can live a peaceful life here, and he even has a kid too. The first hybrid Saiyan ever born. Although he's not going to be named Gohan, because he doesn't know who Grandpa Gohan is, so he'd either give Gohan a Saiyan name, or maybe even just name him after Bardock or something. Unless Chi-Chi gets her say and decides to name him something crazy like Einstein or whatever. Let's hope Kakarot gets to choose the name. And as for Turles, he returns to Planet Vegeta. He has the power of an evil Saiyan, but that doesn't need to define him. He'll continue to grow and prosper. And you know, maybe he needs to get a set of those Dragon Balls for himself to make up for all the planets he's destroyed. It is a long process. Turles doesn't just become good overnight. But slowly and surely, the Saiyans around him who gave him a second chance, they're able to mold him into something new. Just like the Saiyans were able to take their bad situation before and mold it into something brand new, bring back Saiyan society, and starting a brand new chapter. When Frieza destroyed Planet Vegeta, that wasn't the end. Rather, it was the beginning of a new era of Saiyans. Although, this isn't just a new beginning for Universe 7 Saiyans. Of course, after all their time with Beerus, Shallot and Giblet by now know about the other universes, and the other Saiyans do too. And it makes them curious. Do Saiyans exist elsewhere? Well, yeah. In Universe 6, which is a twin universe to Universe 7, apparently there is a planet of Saiyans. Champa does visit Beerus one day, and comes to learn how strong the Saiyans in this universe are, even after what they went through. And it makes him wonder, could he find a rival like that in his universe? Well, there's only one way to find out. Champa tries to get the Super Dragon Balls here, but says he'll give up on that as long as the Saiyans in his universe grow stronger from the Saiyans in Beerus' universe. So, a couple Saiyans are sent out. Shallot and Giblet, who are descendants of the Super Saiyan God, as well as the two Vegetas, the former and current ruler of the Saiyans now. They would definitely want to meet King Sadala and the rest of the Saiyans there. The two Vegetas meet King Sadala, as well as some of the other top Saiyans in Universe 6. But amidst their meeting, Vegeta comes across one of the elite soldiers. He looks surprisingly young, but apparently he's one of the stronger Saiyans here. His name's Cabba. And maybe he could use this Saiyan as a perfect example. If they want to grow stronger, Vegeta is going to have to know where they stand right now after all. And Cabba says it would be an honor to accept. He can't believe the king of the Saiyans in another universe is taking interest in him. Something about him draws Vegeta to him. And the former King Vegeta converses with King Sadala, watching this battle unfold. Universe 6 Saiyans are pretty strong even just in their base, but they know nothing about Super Saiyan or any of the God forms for that matter. They spend hours talking about the history of each of their universes, while Vegeta spars with Cabba and some of the other Saiyans here. Shallot and Giblet of course join too, and explain more about their origins. This is a really fun experience, and Vegeta would definitely love to come back here. Although, he does have a lot on his plate because now he's the king of the Saiyans in Universe 7, and he has a lot to manage there, especially since they just came back to life. So it might not be for a while, but he definitely does want to come back here. After all, these are Saiyans. He might be from another universe and another planet Sadala, but still. In Vegeta's eyes, they're all connected. He sees the potential in every Saiyan, not just in his universe, but the entire multiverse. He does have to focus on his own for now. But he would love to come back here, especially to see how much the other Saiyans have grown. Next time he comes here, he's going to fight Cabba first, and he tells Cabba he better have Super Saiyan. He pays his respects to King Sadala, and says he's just as welcome to visit Planet Vegeta in Universe 7 if he ever wants to. He hopes to see them all soon, but for now, he has to tend to his planet. To think there's even more Saiyans out there than he realized. It's quite the revelation. As Planet Vegeta begins to prosper again under Vegeta's guidance, Vegeta IV that is, this is where we end our story. What did you guys think about this scenario as a whole? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to see what you guys think. As usual, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Anyways, thank you all for watching, thanks for supporting the scenario all the way through, and I'll see you all in my next video.